Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. I'm introing this episode, and I'm just too fucking excited to have Dynamite D back on the fucking podcast. Welcome, my friend. It's been a
What
while.
is up, you guys? I'm lucky to even be standing right now, so happy to be here.
Yeah, wild, wild, wild. And today we're going to actually be talking about stimulant use. So, like on the Trend Tales that you came on, which was a really well downloaded episode, like everyone's like, what the fuck? This is wild. Because, of course, we had yourself, Tony Huge, obviously, and a multitude of guests talking about trend use. So, if you haven't listened, guys, and you're tuning in today, be sure to hit that one up because it's crazy. Now, stimulant use wise, I feel like for sure people can forget that it's like, oh, it's your Himbine, it's Clen, but it's also caffeine, pre-workout, so many other things. I'm sure you get this. It's like there's an oversight sometimes into stimulant use from a base level, right?
Yeah, and there's genetic discrepancy that's come into this conversation as well, where genetics actually matter, and certain things affect your genetics, your epigenetics, so literally directly impact those genes without even like people realizing it. So there's a lot of cross pharmacokinetics along with genetic lines and hormones that come into equation. So it's not just direct stimulant use, but it's literally underlying genetic things that no one even talks about. And that's really where the compound interest comes, is it's all like one bucket that you're dumping into, but some things are like exponents that you add into the equation where it makes everything break down slower or more effective by inhibiting enzymes, things like that. And people don't understand that like these natural supplements, they're technically might as well be drugs. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because I feel like, even in that example, it's like some people will have a coffee and they're like, whoa, I'm buzzing, I'm going to train. Other people, like myself, I have a coffee and I feel the same. So it's again, are you spanking it? Are you titrating it up? Are you using a multitude of things? Do you even track it for a start, right? Like there's so many people that are dependent on even pre-workout.
100%. So what I find is actually in prep, if you actually want to have a really good prep, stay below 200 milligrams of caffeine and lean into other nootropics along the way. And I can't tell you how many times I've told people this, and then they message me. They're like, "Dude, this was the easiest prep I've ever had." This is before GLPs were super popular, and didn't go above 200 milligrams of caffeine in a day. So you use like 100 milligrams, and maybe for cardio, and 100 milligrams pre-workout. Plus, it doesn't interfere with your pumps, unless if you're like on a time dispersed um, energy drip, such as like alphagen, for instance, for morphogen. It has four different esters of hitting the caffeine receptor. So you can do it in the beginning of the day and you get literally it throughout the entire day. So it actually helps people with like ADHD and a prep, and there's no calm down. It's just like a steady drip of energy through the day. That's why a lot of people like lean into nicotine, and we can get into all this, but like lean into nicotine versus caffeine. It's the same thing. It's just different half lives. And people were idolizing nicotine. Now, people don't also know that nicotine is used in energy drinks in China. And that's actually when I started kind of experimenting with like natural organic nicotines
Mhm.
rather than just like Zyn. I think everyone leans into like Zyn nowadays. I don't even know. Zyn is like whatever you pack it or whatever. I don't know.
That's
It's
the
all the
thing as
same.
well. It's like if there isn't a titration of caffeine, like if you're doing a long prep, right, and you're already on 1,000 milligrams of caffeine at the
Yep.
start, where do you go? You know?
So it's really interesting that I have had plenty of athletes that have been like 80 to 100, 800 milligrams to a gram of caffeine per day. And the first thing I do is I'm like, hey, so I'm not going to cold turkey it on you, but I'm literally ripping it down to 400 max. Immediately, they're like, oh my gosh, I have more energy. I'm like, yeah, because you're just tanking yourself. That's all that you're doing, is you're making yourself sleepy by jamming all these stimulants through your system. Like there's ways to biohack your way to freedom. And it's by optimizing the cells and making sure that you're producing more ATP like at a cellular level. Like you can improve biology rather than just taking a drug. Caffeine is a drug, nicotine's a drug, amphetamines are drugs. They're all drugs at the end of the day. And if you don't look at it that way, yohimbine's a drug, even though it's natural, it's still a drug. It is more potent than a lot of drugs. So again, if you're someone that's super stimulated very easily with like a cup of caffeine, well, guess what happens? Like you need to keep your stimulant use low because odds of you breaking down adrenaline faster are low. It's called CompT and MAO. So like women break down adrenaline slower than men also because of estrogen. So these androgens also affect it too. So like if you're taking a high amount of testosterone, then you break down adrenaline faster. If you have more estrogen, you break it down slower. So those are all things that aren't talked about. So when you're adding hormones into the equation, it can exacerbate the use of stimulants because you don't get as much out of it. So you start taking more and more. That's one reason why, while steroids are not addicting, it has addictive tendencies behind it because of the breakdown of dopamine, actually.
Well, yeah, and dopamine in itself, isn't it? It's like everything becomes habitual. You're waiting for your next fix then. And then I had someone on a podcast once that said, with PEDs, it's like you have one PED and then you're like, oh, it's a gateway to what's next. And then you start using compounds that you said I'd never ever use. And then suddenly and it's like this crazy plethora of different compounds on top of the stimulant use. Maybe we're using nicotine, etc., etc. And it is wild. And then, of course, in a physique-based sport, we're expecting your physique to present on stage at the best version. But if you're packing away all these different things as well, there's considerations there.
Yeah. So, in talking about like stimulant use, there's also hormones like thyroid hormone, where if you get it into hyperandrogenism, so I have Graves' disease. So I live this life every single day of my life. And that's the reason why I'm like lucky to even be alive right now is because we figured out what it was by running labs biweekly. But when thyroid hormone, T3 predominantly, if T3 gets into hyper ranges, it starts pumping out adrenaline and there's no combating it. It doesn't come down. It just keeps pumping out adrenaline. So, I've seen crazy T3 protocols where they're like hundreds of micrograms. Like I'm talking like 100 to 200 micrograms of T3. And all that you're doing is pumping out adrenaline after that point. And then you're going to have to do things like beta blockers to slow down your heart rate. And then if you're using stimulants on top of it, then you're speeding up your heart rate and pumping out more adrenaline. And it just becomes compound interest essentially. If you're taking a himbine, then it makes you break down adrenaline slower because it affects MAO. It's an alpha inhibitor. And then you throw in clenbuterol, which is a beta agonist. And then you have like you're throttling both things. Actually, that's the reason why I like clenbuterol and yohimbine versus ephedrine. Ephedrine hits both, but you can throttle both at the same time if you're using clen versus or albuterol. Albuterol works too. And the yohimbine together. It's all compound interest, but you can throttle basically. You can get like reduce down your clenbuterol use or drop clenbuterol completely, and so I'll have yohimbine in the mix, or drop the yohimbine and keep the clenbuterol in the mix, whatever it is. And then clenbuterol use is actually wild. Like I've been hearing 240 micrograms of clenbuterol being used again in conjunction with over 100 micrograms of T3, which biologically just doesn't make sense. Um, so.
I bet you hear a lot of stories. I find, holy shit, you're doing this to
It's
a human.
it's not uncommon like that. Like I've been hearing this either, which is very surprising to me because people are very well aware. I don't believe that 80 micrograms or even definitely above 100 micrograms. I've had like five different use cases where 100 micrograms a person could tolerate it actually decently well, and they were just like a freak when it came to breakdown of adrenaline. And they also kept their stimulant use low and they actually felt good on it, whereas giving them a little bit of energy, steady energy through the day, and they didn't do any caffeine. And then I have other people where it's like 20 micrograms of clenbuterol and they're geeked out of their minds and it's just something that they can't take. And then you have other people that they take, and I've actually been in this situation. My adrenals are so bad from tren use that I added clenbuterol into the mix and I was falling asleep. But I could leverage ephedrine, but I cannot leverage clenbuterol. And I've actually seen some other use cases where adrenals are so bad that it like starts making you sleepy. And that's a bad thing. Like if you did clen and it makes you sleepy, you've got some issues. That's how I knew the prep was going bad, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, have you got any wild stories of stimulant use when you were sort of first getting into the game and first going into this rabbit hole?
Yeah, so clenbuterol it actually used to be a kind of crazy protocol back in the day. It was always a pyramid. So you'd actually pyramid it up and pyramid it down, and you start at 40 micrograms, and you titrate it up to 200 micrograms, and then you pyramid it back down. You take a break for 2 weeks, and then you pyramid it and drop it back down again, which almost I guess it would curve some of the withdrawal effects when you're coming back down, but you would just feel the whole rise, like you'd just be tweaking the whole time. And I broke down adrenaline very fast. I was used to hyperthyroidism, so
Yeah.
I could tolerate it somewhat okay, but it was such a bad implementation of clenbuterol. That was one that was crazy. I also used to see like these, like it was like 175 to 200 micrograms of T3 back in the day, just like absurd use of T3, which all that does is waste muscle tissue. Now, thyroid hormone within physiological ranges doesn't waste muscle tissue unless if you're just like food is super low. But if you're getting refeeds and replenishing glycogen, you don't waste muscle tissue like people make it out to be.
Mm.
It like people think that like 25 micrograms of T3 just wastes muscle tissue. It's like maybe they didn't have muscle tissue to begin with. Maybe it's just body fat coming off of them. That's like people get that twisted really hard. And then glycogen being starved down. That's not muscle tissue loss. Even if you ran a DEXA scan and say muscle tissue loss, it's not muscle tissue loss if you're in physiological ranges. Now, when you're doing like 100 micrograms of T3 and you're also being starved, well, that's going to cause muscle wasting. And you know if you're wasting muscle tissue because you start smelling like ammonia. In fact, like I was not using thyroid this prep, but I was doing true whey isolate back in the day, which was zero fat and zero carbs, like true isolate. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It tasted terrible. And I was doing 200 grams of protein per day, zero carbs, zero fats. So basically zero trace fats also because I was only having whey isolate. I was doing 2 hours of cardio because the weight cap back then was 177 and I smelled like ammonia for months. And it was one of the most uncomfortable, painful processes I've ever been through. And that was not using I was actually using stimulants to get through my day. But like looking back, like I always felt like I had low blood sugar. My hands were always purple, but I have hyperthyroidism. So it's like it was no down regulation happening. A normal person would have down regulation of thyroid hormone, and then it would kind of be that's your fail safe. That like thyroid down regulating is not necessarily a bad thing. That's your body saying, hey, I don't have food. Let's not go into let's not waste through all our tissue that we need to waste through. We'll go through the energy source and stuff like that, like your fats and your carbohydrates that you've left in your body, but only on protein, which people say it's like keto nowadays and like trace fats, which is not true. Like 20 grams of 30 grams of fat and only protein is not keto. You're going to go into something called gluconeogenesis, and that is going to convert the protein and your muscle tissue both in, if it needs to, if it doesn't have enough protein through dietary, into carbohydrates so that your cells ATP production can be done. Also, your liver doesn't fail because your liver has a carbohydrate requirement in a day. It's approximately 60 grams of carbohydrates.
I bet you think back sometimes and think, fucking hell. How did I get through that?
Yeah. Well, if I wasn't young like I was when I was doing some of this stuff, then I probably would be dead right now.
Mm.
Or maybe I should say unalived for the edit because you can't post.
Unalived. I would technically be unalived. Did you find that when you first used Clen, did you feel it straight away or was it settling on?
Usually I'd feel it on like the first day, the 40 micrograms. So I actually like starting at 20 micrograms. You usually don't feel it. And then you slowly titrate dose by like 20 micrograms every like week or so is kind of what I find. But like back in the day, it would be like every time you bumped it, I actually felt really good on clenbuterol. And I will say that once I had like really bad graves, it's like 40 micrograms and I was in outer space for like the next 36 hours. Like I didn't get the tweaking and the twitching, but my eyes would be zigzagging. So it's a little bit different with graves where I could tell that my tracking of the eyes was very difficult to read and stuff like that.
Mm.
So mine was very different than others where most people experience like the tremors. I wouldn't get tremors. I would get tremors from low blood sugar though, from the clenbuterol just metabolizing so fast, plus hyperthyroidism. So my thyroid never downregulated. I have so many labs of like if you added T3 in, it just added into the bucket and like it just sent me further into hyper ranges. So I never had thyroid downregulation ever.
Wild. This is the importance, guys, if you're listening. First guest on, get your bloods done for a
Oh
start.
yeah. Yeah, figure out where your thyroid's at before you start prep, and then you know that your thyroid's going to downregulate during prep no matter what. So getting into healthy ranges of thyroid hormone is actually a great thing. But sometimes you can get away with just like low doses of T4 and then it converts to T3. So as you use certain androgens help to reduce down TBG. So even though you're adding into the T4 bucket, it'll do a better job of converting to T3 because you have more free thyroid hormone because the TBG or thyroid binding globulin goes down. So that's something that I found like super effective. And also you get reverse T3, which people demonize. You don't want a ton of reverse T3, but most people don't do it like convert a ton to reverse T3, but it balanced with the adrenaline response from the T3. That's one reason why I like T4. And people, I read a post, you'll like this one. I read a post one time saying you have to spend money on a better coach because this protocol sucks. And it was leveraging micro dosages of T4, like 50 micrograms of T4, not a microdose, but 50 micrograms of T4 rather than jumping into T3, and they're making fun of the person. They're like, you should only be using T3 in prep. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you know literally zero about thyroid hormone, and you're making fun of someone else that actually put together a pretty intelligent protocol just because they're charging less than you and you don't know thyroid. You made yourself look really bad with that post. And like I saw a lot of coaches that were good coaches. Well, they're not like guru level coaches or anything like that. But like better coaches that have good results. And they were like laughing about it, saying, wow, why would you implement T4? This is stupid. And I'm like, look, you guys, and that's why I actually made some posts on thyroid hormone earlier this year saying and educating on T4. And T4 use is great. Like there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for microdosages of T3. If you can not shut down a thyroid and not go to complete replacement, do it. That's medical practice. But people don't understand medical practice in the bodybuilding space at all. People hardly understand the functional approach too. But we're lucky that we have some good educators in that space.
Yeah.
I try to educate in that space too. But I like a blend. I had to know medical as well as functional because a lot of medical doctors will not talk to functional practitioners, do not know what they're doing. Function Functional naturopathic doctors are very different than functional practitioners.
Mm.
Massive gap.
Yeah, for sure. And this is why, people like yourself coming on the podcast, it's super important for me because people won't even know these things go on, right? It's like you see shit on Instagram and it's if that you see something on Instagram and it's like if that resonates with me, oh, I've been seen, I'm gonna follow this person, I'm gonna listen to them like they're God. So it's super, super important. Before we start record, Himbine, tell me your personal experience.
So Yohimbine is like you either tolerate it well or you don't, and it has to do with MAO. It has to do with actually your methylation genes more so than anything else. If you break down adrenaline fast, you're probably going to be fine on it. Plus, adding androgens in makes you break down adrenaline faster. But because it inhibits MAO, the inhibition that it does, so you break down adrenaline slower. The other thing is yohimbine is relatively healthy for people that, especially that tolerate it well, because it helps with libido, which no one really talks about. That was actually something that was kind of annoying with it. Is like you're on androgens and you take yohimbine, you have no energy, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool. Like the wind blows in. I'm trying just to do some fasted cardio here. Can you stop? So it's always like kind of annoying on that sense, but I had always had a really good experience with yohimbine. Not everyone works well with yohimbine. Starting at 2.5 milligrams per day is a great starting place. I would not say anyone should start higher than that. And you have to figure out if you tolerate it well, because if it sends you to the moon, I wouldn't even touch it, because that usually has to do with at a genetic level that you're not breaking down adrenaline fast enough and that you're inhibiting that, which you're already breaking down too slow. So don't touch it.
I feel like in this episode we will for sure uncover some stories of the anxieties and mental health of your himbone as well. So yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it directly impacts dopamine, right? And then eventually you're going to get a cascade down to serotonin and stuff like that.
Mm.
So you start overproducing either of those, and like you can die from serotonin syndrome. I almost died earlier this year as a cross interaction between. I was on 10 milligrams of Lexapro for like 2 weeks, and I started having full blown like seizures, like tremors. And it turned out that like I was like, I'm just curious, did I get serotonin syndrome? Because that's like a very low dose of Lexapro. And I was just like, I was coming out from a surgery. I was not feeling good. So I just wanted something like a little pick me up. And sure enough, almost died from serotonin syndrome, 72 hours of full blown seizures, and almost put me in the hospital. But yeah, cross interaction between pharmacokinetics. And that's, again, supplements need to be looked at as medicine. And that's how not everyone is good with every single supplement.
Can see why you started this episode, Dynamite. Thank you so much, mate.
Yeah, of course. I look forward to doing this again with you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you're still smiling. Keep
Yeah,
going,
still
my G.
smiling. Still a fake teeth. Still some fake teeth in there.
I appreciate it, my G.
Of course. I'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Yeah.
Now, Austin is guest number two. He's used to me intro in the pod, but we're rolling on from Dynamite and we're going to get stuck into. And this is what I want from this episode, Austin, as you can appreciate different perspectives around stimulant use. And I feel like there's certainly in the PD space an assumption that that's just Clen and Yohimbine. There's no, it's like caffeine, pre-workout, stim, like all of these things, and even things like modafinil, there's certain things that people do for sure, and this is a bit of an undercurrent, start to lean on when they are exposed to, wow, these magical things that I can utilize as a bodybuilder. Now, the first question I want to ask you, because you always have the most outrageous, crazy stories of what people have come to you when it's like, okay, so what are you using at the moment? Now, from a caffeine standpoint, just coffee, monsters, pre-workouts, what would you say? Can you remember sort of someone that's blown you away and you're like, okay, that's a lot of caffeine?
Mm. Wow, it's I normally have to dig in and ask questions to actually figure out how bad that is because most people probably I think it's like one thing leads to another type of situation where you desensitize to the effects a little bit and then next thing you know, plus it's a cumulative load. So now if we look at from like a historical setting, there's always been multiple types of stimulants, but now we have what's the word I want to use? Now we have more options in terms of designer stimulants and things like you mentioned modafinil or adrafinil, like things like that. So so I wouldn't say that it's solely based on, well, this person was taking in 1,500 milligrams of caffeine. I mean, that definitely happens, but it's more of we're taking in we're taking in all that caffeine and then we're propping it up with some Adderall and and we have 20 milligrams of yohimbine and we're taking 100 micrograms of Clen, and it's like, well, that's where we start getting into trouble,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
um I'm not, I mean, to preface, I am, because I think a lot of people think that I'm probably very anti a lot of things because I work so much in the functional health space. I'm very much in the camp that rarely is one thing going to be in isolation going to be a driver of a big problem. So, for example, caffeine is not going to hurt you. Okay. Yohimbine is not going to hurt you necessarily. Like those things aren't, it's more of an accumulation of that. But the question is, why are people propping themselves up? Because there's a lot of external stressors and coping going on. That's where the problem lies. The problem really lies in the fact that the reasons that they're doing it, because there's a lot of external stressors that are making them tired, are making them fatigued. So they're coupling that with these things that, like caffeine, really is just kind of blocking the feeling of fatigue, right? Via this adenosine receptors. So it's probably just their environment is probably just as bad as the actual stimulants that they're consuming,
yeah, yeah. I
you
feel like
know?
that's the uncomfortable part of the conversation sometimes when we are trying to essentially guide someone and ask these questions. I'm sure you come across it where you're asking questions to collect the data, what is the setting, etc. And you start to dig down on certain things like environment as the example. And it's almost like sometimes it can be seen as we're questioning and you're not doing it right. And it's like, no, we're trying to collect as much data as possible to actually be able to get the best result from our clients, but also open their perspective into how, as you say, environment could be then leading to excessive stimulant use because you're just trying to, and I love how you said coping, you're trying to cope with trying to be a bodybuilder and then you're trying to cope with a normal life, work, etc. And that's uncomfortable as a client as well, because when you start to dig down on these things, it's like, whoa, where do we begin? It can be a bit of a can of worms, can't it?
Mm. Yeah, and some of the things are kind of abstract. They're not, we're people that like quantitative data. We like numbers. We like to be able to see stuff. And some of these things are not outwardly visible, right? So we can collect data, we can look at feedback, we can look at actual metrics, we can look at things like HRV, we can look at blood glucose, we can look at blood pressure, we can look at lab work. It doesn't always tell the whole story.
Yeah, for sure. And things like stimulants, depending on the use, the duration of time, etc. I feel like it's almost like a bit of a gateway to I'm going to use these things because, as you said, they don't necessarily harm you per se. Of course, as I say, duration, excessive use, and what have you. But it's like the caffeine in itself. How would you ever think that, having a lot of coffee, having a lot of stimulants through that almost gateway, how would you even think that's a problem? Because it's like, oh, I just love my coffee. And then we're like, how many coffees do you have a day? Do we look to titrate up and down? And I feel like in a bodybuilding setting, and I'm sure you're going to agree, if we're utilizing a lot of stimulants in the off season, as a bodybuilding example, when we then lead into the prep, there's less room to titrate and essentially use tools throughout the prep. Rather than going in and you're already on X amount of coffees per day, can we look at a bit of a titration in the seasons as well?
Hmm. Yeah, most people probably aren't consuming, I mean, hopefully not, consuming some of the more designated fat loss based stimulants, things like clenbuterol and yohimbine, hopefully in the off season. Don't
Sure.
know why you would,
Yeah.
but well, hopefully not. Caffeine, yes, and then probably some of the stimulants that were really marketed as nootropic products like modafinil originally, but of course we know it is a stimulant,
Yeah.
you know. Um, they're probably using them as productivity tools
Yes.
in an off-season setting. They're not necessarily using them as hunger suppressing tools, though they could be. They
Mhm.
could be suppressing your hunger. They could be probably hampering digestion to some extent, especially, you're trying to eat high amounts of food. That could be problematic. But they're by and large probably being used as productivity tools. The people that are using them are also the highly driven types that probably tend to do too much. So you can see where that goes.
Yeah.
It's they're getting hit from a lot of angles.
Yeah, yeah. Because I feel like as well in the off season, it can be underestimated to actually, if you really are crushing your off season, you're taxing your CNS. You're still pushing, like, you have this where it's like the prep is where I find my tunnel vision. But if you are really focused in the off season and trying to get the most amount of results in that setting, then of course you're still taxed a hell of a lot. So something like modafinil could be an easy route, a pre-workout and those things that are going to essentially prop you up, as it were. And then we've got, I feel like everyone's a bit addictive, Austin, in the world, but
Hmm.
bodybuilding brings about this sort of chasing of the dragon, doesn't it?
Yeah, everyone. I'm not an addiction professional or counselor, so I'm not going to give medical advice, but I would say that probably most people society wide are addicted to something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Probably.
Mm,
Um, and then of course the personality types that are drawn into bodybuilding are highly addictive
mm,
and usually are more of a dopamine seeking behavior, which is why they gravitate towards stimulants
mm,
oftentimes, right? That's why you tend to see people in the bodybuilding world gravitate towards things like, heavy caffeine use or heavy stimulant use in general. Um, you know, the other thing, the other thing that I've kind of found just anecdotally with people that are using caffeine is if we can start by just understanding some basics like half-lives of stimulants, that can actually prevent a lot of issues. Like a lot of people are having, it's bleeding into their sleep quality, or it's taking a lot longer for the resting heart rate to calm down or for them to get into REM sleep or to get into deep sleep. Very simple things like cutting your stimulants off far enough away from bedtime can make a world of difference. So if you do want to use those things during the day for whatever reason, whether it be productivity or training, um, you're still being you're still resting well, you're still recovering well. Um, you know, that can be a really simple thing that anyone can do,
mm.
right? Now, if you're training in the evenings, that can be problematic just because of the timing, but I don't I don't like to advocate. I'm not someone that likes to advocate heavy stimulant use, so I don't really want to sit on here and say that there are other options, but I mean there are things that are shorter acting that can potentially be used for, like afternoon and evening trainings. Like caffeine having probably, 5, 6-ish hour half-life, you figure it's taking quite a while to clear depending on your metabolism and how much you're, intaking. But Yohimbine's a shorter half-life. Some people utilize like nicotine. That's a shorter half-life than caffeine. I mean, that's a stimulant, right? But a lot of the stimulants that people use do have a fairly long half-life. A lot of things like modafinil or having, if they're using like amphetamine-based type stuff like Adderall and things, I mean, they can have extended release or they can have traditional release, but they are still fairly long.
Mm.
elimination time
Mm.
in comparison to some others. So that's something that I've noticed, that even if you're not removing stimulants entirely, you can just greatly enhance sleep quality just simply by altering the timing of use,
Mm.
right?
Mm. I feel like as well, there is potential from what you've just said that just came into my mind that actually, people utilize the stimulants. Maybe they've got a PM workout or what have you, stuff on they need to do. And then they start to think, well, I'll use my sleep supplements. Or I know in the bodybuilding space, smoking weed's quite, popular, as it were. I don't know how to frame that, but it's something that gets used. So I feel like sometimes people are going to maybe think, well, I can use that, but then I can use this to counteract it. But actually, when we look at it, that again, it's a bit of a can of worms into how you're sort of trying to, if you see what I mean, seesaw things to get the best amount of sleep, but still have the productivity. And then it's this whole realm of utilizing so many different things in one setting.
And when you get to a point like that, you're 100% correct. I mean, when you get to a point like that, the question I would really ask is, well, what would you feel like if you didn't use them? Could you function? I mean, if the answer is no, not at all, I'm debilitated, we might have an issue.
Mm.
Like, are you ever standing on your own 2 feet?
This is the thing.
Or do you have extra feet holding you up all the time? It's yeah, I mean it is a very slippery slope, and unfortunately now is there's a lot of voices in, on social media, whether you want to call it education space or not, because a lot of it is maybe not helpful, but people just justify, right? There's always a way to justify the use of something, of anything. And the things you see online, they may lack context, like how often they use it or how much they use, and you don't know anything about these people. You could have someone saying, "Hey, caffeine is a great performance enhancement," but what you don't realize is that in the background they're actually really struggling,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
or whatever. I mean, it could be anything, right? Um, but yeah, stimulants are interesting because I have, I obviously work with a lot of people that have a wide array of different types of health ailments. And I often get asked that question, do I need to remove caffeine?
Yeah.
That's most commonly. I mean, I work with a lot of general population too that probably aren't as much into some of the other types of stimulants, but those are almost always the bodybuilders.
Yeah.
But I do get asked that question a lot. Do I need to remove caffeine in order to fix my, insert whatever the problem is? And the answer for most people is probably not. There needs to be a reasonable amount, obviously, and we're not taking it too late in the day. But again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, 9 times out of 10, the if you look at this as we use that bucket analogy, the bucket's overflowing, or I use like a pie chart, remember from school where they had each slice of the pie as a percentage.
Yeah.
So little of that pie chart is probably taken up by caffeine in terms of it being a stressor to your system. It's just that, like we said, the people that are leaning on it have all of these other reasons why they're leaning on it. That's what's overflowing their bucket. So if you're managing those other things, caffeine's not going to be your problem.
For sure.
If you're not managing those other things and you think removing caffeine is going to fix you, that's probably also not going to be the solution. Will
Yeah.
it help? I mean, sure. Sure, it may help, but it's not going to fix your problems.
I feel like as well, it's like, as you said, people on social media and stuff, they're looking at promoting themselves through your pain points. So it's like, do you suffer with X? Do you
Yep.
use X? And then people go, oh, I'm brought in. And you don't even realize as a consumer a lot of the time. Now, we obviously have been in the space for quite some years, so we can see this, but people listening for sure, it's that little reminder that often the reels and the people that are doing these things are trying to prey on your pain points. And it's the world we live in. We can't change that. But again, this is why, educational podcasts like this are super useful. Now, when it
Mhm.
comes to Clen and Yohimbine, do you, with clients, do you have like a top titration you would hit for those, or is it very independent on the person?
Great question. I can firmly say that I actually use those far less than I used to. So my last contest prep, I use zero of either.
Me too in my last diet. Yes.
Now, I'm not saying because someone on here is going to be like, well, you suggested that I took it. And I'm like, okay. But my point here is that the ROI is not that great. So when I say ROI of like return on investment, it's just not that good. I mean, you figure clenbuterol specifically has such a long half-life.
It does, yeah. Wild.
The half-life is ridiculously long. So even if you take a very low dose of say like 20 micrograms or 40 micrograms, it's probably still going to be in your system to some extent when you're going to sleep.
Sure.
And then you have to ask yourself, well, how much increase in basal metabolic rate am I really getting from this? It's not that much. Even at higher dosages, it's not that much. So what I generally do with clenbuterol is if we do use it, the dose will probably start somewhere fairly low, maybe 20. We might go up to 40. But as soon as I see that, let's say on what's today, Friday, if I increase the dose on Thursday and then on Thursday night, sleep quality goes down too much. That's our top dose. Let's back it back down to whatever we were at before. And that will probably be the highest that we will ever get through the duration of the whole prep.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, it can be helpful if it's not affecting sleep quality, then use as much as you can until it does,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then cut it off, right? Because, like I said, I would argue that sleep and prep's already compromised for a number of other reasons. Your nervous system's already very use the term dysregulated. It's kind of a cop out term, but it's very dysregulated. So don't make it any worse. Yohimbine's a lot shorter half life though, so you know it's going to probably work best in a setting where someone's doing some kind of non-glucose intensive activity in the morning when they're fasted, like walking or whether that be outside treadmill, whatever it is. So it's going to work best in that regard. So you can get away with yohimbine for sure, just because it's pretty short half life. If I use yohimbine, I'm actually going on the opposite end of the spectrum. I usually subscribe more to use maximum effective dose, which could be anywhere in the realm of like 1 milligram per maybe 10 pounds of lean body mass or so. Like for me, again, I didn't use it in the last prep, but I don't think I might have. I don't think I did. But if I had, you know, 200 pounds of lean body mass, or maybe what is that, like 85 to 90 kilos of lean body mass, like something like that, I might use upwards of 20 milligrams of yohimbine HCl in one dose.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's it for the day. It's an AM dose. We're getting activity in, and then we're not utilizing it the rest of the day.
Mhm.
Right. Um, the other thing is now we have all these other cool non-stimulant fat loss compounds available. So I'd almost argue that it's becoming less and less appealing to even utilize those things. I mean, we have things that work on fatty acid oxidation and mitochondrial systems. And it's like, man, I don't even know how much. And then we can, of course, exogenous thyroid if we need replacement there. I mean, like all these things. So I don't even know how necessary a lot of this stuff is going to be moving forward,
Yeah, it is.
truthfully.
Yeah, I feel like that. I actually, when I did the 19-week diet, it wasn't a prep, but I got, fairly lean. And I was like, I want to test my own, like, how does this feel and how does it feel without stims? Because my previous prep was with stims. And I wanted to see if that would affect, like, you can get hunger suppression with Clen and your himbone, right? Like, because you have this sort
Sure.
of, this
Yeah, yeah.
energy, as it were. And I was just like, I just want to try and this is a funny term in the bodybuilding space. I want to do it a bit healthier, quote unquote, without utilizing stimulants and just see how it feels. And it was a nice exploration to do it. But then I also caveated it. If I was going to stage perhaps the last portion, I would utilize something like Canoe Himbine. So,
Yeah.
it's an open book, as it were, isn't it?
Yeah. You, I mean, in prep is you try to do it as safely as possible. You got to do what you have to do at the end of the day. I mean, it is contest prep. the best thing you can hope for is that you started prep in a pretty good position to begin with. I mean, that's really most important at the end of the day is the amount of abuse you can take in prep probably directly correlates with how good of a spot you started prep in. You know, if you were really fat and already using a gram of caffeine and had digestive issues and all this shit before you even started, it's like, it's gonna be a bad time.
Yeah. Where is this gonna fucking go?
Well, so yeah, a little bit of yohimbine and Clint at the end is probably the least of your concern, but yeah, I don't use them. I prefer not to, if possible,
It's open
as much as we can.
conversation. It's trying to speak with the client as well, see what, if they've got a preference, because some people would prefer to stay away from stimulants use as well. This
Sure.
inspires into what they're. I remember when my clen was really high and Euhenbine at the same time, and I thought, if I worked in an office or such like, I'd be a bloody
Wouldn't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another caveat as well.
And there's also a large, not that we can really go too far into that, there's also a large genetic component in terms of how people metabolize these things. So if you are a coach, you should listen to the client because some people can overexpress certain neurochemicals and they don't feel very good when they take certain things. Some people feel horrendous when they take yohimbine,
Mm, mm.
right? Some people do fine. Like I actually can handle basically any dose of yohimbine I've ever taken. I can handle it. Caffeine, about the same. Again, I don't take a lot of it, but other people, depending on things like MTHFR genes and how they methylate and all these things, they could feel really bad
Mm.
when they take stimulants. So, they may just prefer not to.
Yeah, Yohimbine in particular, a lot of reports of
Sure.
anxiety, mental health,
Mhm.
changes. And this is where you say, if you are a coach, try and have that open dialogue with the client to actually be able to support. Maybe it's not the right move. And there's so many tools in a prep, Austin, like you say. So it's like, you don't have to, if you're an assisted athlete, you don't have to use Clen and Yohimbine. Just remember that.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
Love it. Well, thank you for
Cool.
coming back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is a Christmas
Hopefully,
listeners.
yeah, hopefully this marathon, the marathon podcast is well received.
Sure, lots of editing as you can imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, the cool thing is you'll have a ton of short form content.
For sure, for sure. I'm like, this
Just
is me.
you can cut up some clips and you're gonna have like 3 months of clips. You'll want to
About
think of anything.
stims.
Yeah, you want to think of
Love it.
anything.
Thank you,
Cool.
Austin.
Awesome. I'll
Ah,
talk to you soon.
okay, we're rolling through. There's no intro that you're used to.
Ah, I'm
Well,
so used to an intro now.
yeah.
This is so strange.
So Sarah, aka Small but Mighty, is joining me to talk about STIM use. So we've been deep diving on personal anecdote, the guest, and sometimes utilization with clients, when we would use stims, etc. And some stories, if there's anything you can think of when you use stims, of like, shit, I won't forget that. You know what it's
Yeah,
like when you first use.
yeah. I think we all have that experience. I think we've all had like a bad experience at some point with some stimulants, right?
I,
Yeah.
I I feel like particularly like obviously when you think about it, it's like, okay, so this is going to add additional fat loss. Cool. Okay, so I'll put that in. And I feel like, PDs in itself, it's an exploration because you don't really know when you start going down the assisted route what it means. And depending on the level of education from your coach, it's like, just take this pill. And
Mm.
then suddenly you start to think, and particularly I feel like, Clenio Himbine, depending on the dosage, you can just feel a little bit strange.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you've like you've probably experienced yourself or seen with clients, like there is that some clients can take a certain dosage of, say, for example, clenbuterol, be okay, and then over say they take like 20 mcgs, and then they're fine, and they take 40, then they're like completely different, anxiety through the roof, heart palpitations. Like someone can be so sensitive to clen, like it's actually crazy. And I found that. I've used a fair whack of Clen in my past, not necessarily just because of the coach I was with, because I'm just a fucking lunatic.
Me.
We were like, I'll just do some more.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Tom says 20, I say 80. Um, and like I've not been too bad with it, but again, like it's the initial phases where you start using it if you haven't used Clen for forever. Like I haven't used Clen in over 2 years, so when I start using it, it's gonna be fucking horrendous.
Yeah. It's hard to. I feel like this is why it's good doing an episode like this because it's hard to go. Well, this is how you're going to feel. Because
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, like there are so many. I even had one of my old clients who was taking Clen and didn't feel fucking anything. And obviously that's when you question the brand of the Clen or whatever. But
yeah,
like even then you think even if I've tested the Clen myself or used it or whatever, and they're not getting any response, but I'm getting all the responses, like it's so individual, isn't it? It's crazy. It's really fucking cool actually.
yeah, I love that as well. And in PDs, anabolics, all of this stuff, it's like you really don't know, but then it creates almost like your own little story within the physique realm. Like that's personally when I go assisted, it's like I want to explore what's possible, and
Yeah.
that's like how I feel on it as well. I feel like some people aren't going to maybe be as self-aware, and it's just like, oh, I'll just take it for this result. But I know you're the same as me. I'm like, I want to track how I feel here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it kind of just guides you to dosages that you might want to play with in the future, or where it kind of also you can kind of be like, I've taken that and it doesn't work, so I'm not going to go back near it.
Yeah, yeah. Have you used your Himbime?
Never. I'm just not a huge fan of your Himbin before. Like to be fair, like I just don't really like it. Well, I can use like Clen and something and get a really good result, and then obviously I know Yohiman works on different pathways, but I don't really see much more use. Like, why would I use an additional something when I think actually it's probably maybe like a 1 to 2% change when I could just remove that and just up the Clen by a certain amount. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And obviously you can titrate things like caffeine or people use pre-workout. Again, this is something that's good to explore in this episode because I think that people would just like spank coffee, have a pre-workout even at the height of off season, and then it's like, what tools do we have in a prep?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've had this conversation with quite a few people who, like you said, start prep, and they're like having 10 coffees and three monsters and a pre-workout, and you think just what how are you going to help yourself when you're like 2 weeks out and crawling on the floor, dying of fatigue, when you're already still taking 10 coffees, three monsters, and a pre-workout? Because at that point your tolerance is so fucking high, you're not going to get anything from that caffeine. You're just going to feel like shit still.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you try and monitor your own caffeine during the phases?
Um, so to be honest, like I've recently, like I'm a huge fan of coffee, so I'll have maybe 1 to 2 coffees a day. I haven't had a monster in over 2 weeks now because I don't know, I just wanted to have a break, and two, when over time, like the idea and the taste of a monster just makes you feel a bit like, ugh.
For
I
sure.
just for some reason I just suddenly have gone off them, which is I'm not complaining because
Yeah.
it's just another thing to have, isn't it? But I normally have 1 to 2 cups of coffee, and that'll be the same in prep. Like I'll keep that all the way consistent because I don't, again, like I don't want to rely on it, and I don't use Stim pre-workouts either. I've only ever really used, to tell that's a lie. I use Dial In by JP, but it's a very small amount of stimulants for a nootropic focus based formula. So I only really use a very small amount of that, but only really if I need it. But predominantly I'll use pump workouts because again, when you've got Clen going in, all of these types of things, I don't really, and I obviously when I've tried Clen before, I am quite sensitive to it. So like that, and then a coffee on top, I'm just gonna, my chest is just gonna explode. I don't really want that.
Yeah.
So
That reminded me, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I used to get quite a lot of nausea when my clem was high, and
oh,
then I'd
yeah,
have like coffee, try and fast, and then you're like this, it's like you're a junkie. It feels
yeah,
like you're a junkie.
yeah, yeah, it
I
absolutely does.
can't, and I feel like as well, I mean, stimulants to a certain degree, but I feel like sometimes it's missing that actually as coaches, it's good to sort of preface it for clients that are maybe working around people in the public domain or their job's very intensive from a brain standpoint because it can make you a bit jittery and a bit,
Yeah.
a bit weird. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I sometimes find if I'm doing like check-ins or yeah, it'd be like maybe like sitting down work at my desk, trying to talk because I'm thinking about 1,000 things a minute in my brain, trying to get it out of my mouth is really difficult. So I'm like, yeah, that absolutely impact. But when I'm in the warehouse, fucking useful. Because I can just zoom between orders and shit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you think that you would start Clen? I mean, obviously Carol would instruct what to do, but would Clen normally going from the start for prep for you?
Um, with Tom, it always has. It's normally kind of been in at 40 right from the beginning. That's normally only the first thing. Well, it was different this year. We had quite a lot in from the beginning, but previous preps we very much kind of started with one thing and added, as I do with my clients. Like, let's take my client Carly for example. We started off with nothing, and then we started Clen at 20, and she had T4 kind of running in the background throughout off season from bloods and things like that.
Yep.
And then yeah, we just kind of got to maybe I think 16 weeks out, then got to maybe like the four between 12 and 14 weeks, 20 mcgs of Clem went in, did its job. When things stalled, we then obviously upped her Clem. We never used any T3 with her because there just wasn't any need to. Her exposure was very, very low because again, we didn't need to use anything. So I think if you're going to use something like Clen or whatever it may be, like I don't think being on it from the start is a good idea, because you should be in a position where you can utilize food and output first, and then when you run out of like not run out of tools, but like when you start to slow things down, implement things that are going to speed it back up again. Like I've made that mistake where like swear I've put in things too early and have had nowhere to go.
Yes.
Whereas this year, and I think every coach has done that, right? I think coaches are so scared of admitting that they fucked up at some point. Even when I was like a sports therapist, like I fucked up something here or whatever. Like it's a learning curve, right? And I'm like, okay, so I probably wouldn't do that again,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna try and do this time. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, with anything really in anyone's preps, like I just kind of drop them when I think that they need to be dropped, instead of just being like, quick, put them all in just in case.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, if you put 1,000 things in at once and something goes wrong, you don't know where that going wrong is coming from, right? You want to put one, and that's something I learned this year really, is being like, right, I'm going to drop this now, or I'm going to put this in, or obviously we have a rough timeline in our head, but like it's obviously very rough. If we think that we want to add something in now, then we will, comparative to where we thought we might add it in 2 weeks. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think being able to put things in like at certain points and singularly putting them in and being able to titrate up is probably the best position you want to be in when it comes to things like Clen, especially if you are very I guess very sensitive to things like that. Whereas like if I suddenly put you on fucking 40 mcg, T3, T4, everything, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm feeling anxious as fuck. And then you're like, and if you have compounds in like MPP and stuff, is it the MPP or is it the Clen? Like you just don't know, because if you've thrown everything in all at once, you're like, oh, well, I don't know what it is. So you have to remove it, which could potentially slow you down. And then it's just, yeah, it's fucking crazy. All of these.
I'm so fucking glad you said that, because I literally word for word it's exactly my principles as a coach. It's
Yeah.
it's just I can't get my head around why we need to get all fucked up from the start. Like maybe you're doing a short prep, which is I don't maybe there's some use case scenarios where people do turbo preps and stuff. I know that was a bit of a thing for a while, a couple of years back and whatever. But generally speaking, you're going to allow enough time, and
Oh,
also
yeah,
right,
absolutely.
like you can actually bring a client on board. So, I've got examples where it's like, okay, so we could look at utilizing Clen on a low dose here because this is a natural tool that we could put in at this point. And actually, they're like, I'm not 100% sure yet. Can we sort of leave it another couple of weeks? Fine.
Yeah.
Let's see
Fuck
what
it.
happens in this deficit naturally, as it were, with food
Yeah.
and expenditure. And also, I feel like there's that sort of leaning on PEDs early to sort of try and not have to do what we need to do in a preps mentality as well, which takes sort of away from the prep sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And we've also got to remember as well, like Clen does have muscle building properties as well. So like as a woman, it has its usages more than just fat burning or its lipolytic usage. So like adding that in at a low dose where you feel like the deficit may become a little bit harsher. Yes, it might be 1 to 2% in comparison to, our anabolics that obviously have those muscle retentive purposes and things like that, but it still has a slight muscle retentive like pathway. So you can add that in when the deficit gets harder for that purpose as well. Like it's just, I think Clen is very useful
Mm.
within reason, obviously not in excess. But I also heard that Clen over 120 isn't it makes no difference as well. But I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I mean, Dynamite was touching on this at the start of the episode and how, actually the higher use it can be very detrimental as well. I've spoken to him about it before with like the taxation on the adrenals, just spanking really high above. He said above 100 when I first spoke to him about it. That
Mm.
actually, that is extremely high, particularly for a smaller female. Obviously it's going to depend on the size of the individual as well. But yeah, definitely personally, I don't feel like as a coach I'd want to go above 100. Like I wouldn't even really want to go towards 100.
No, no, neither would I.
I would titrate up like you slowly. And there's use case scenarios as individuals where you could go on the higher end. Like you say, some people
Mm.
don't really feel that sort of unnerved by it. They don't feel too many effects on sleep, stuff like that. So it's like
Yeah,
maybe we can go a bit higher. But yeah, I would be reserved to go. I mean, really over 80, 100 to be honest.
yeah, I agree. I think the highest dose I put anyone on this year was 80,
Yeah.
and any more than that, I just didn't feel was necessary at all,
Mm.
to be honest. Because like you said, I doubt the higher dosages really make much of an impact.
Yeah. And
So
also when we think of sleep, it's funny because I've had a client in prep this year and she's slept fine and the clem was, going up over time and there hasn't been that knock-on effect. Whereas I was like a fucking I was sleeping like 2, 3 hours a night on 120 clen.
yeah, that's fair.
Mm,
You wouldn't expect you to sleep much more than that on bloody.
yeah. Do you
And
notice it on your sleep?
it's crazy. What's that?
Do you notice it on your sleep?
I
Obviously,
mean, in prep, I never fucking sleep. Like, I just can't. But again, was that the clen, or was that like other stimulants maybe or whatever? Um, but it'd be interesting to see next time I prep how it goes and how that change, like how that approach changes. Whether it will change, I don't know. I'm assuming it will, um, but yeah, and I think as well, like when sleep starts going to shit, then fucking everything goes to shit. Like I heard this really good thing the other day where it's like sleep's probably the best supplement you can ever have. Because it fucking is. Like if your sleep is fucked, then everything else is so unresponsive. So I think again that's something that coaches should take into account when you're using stimulants is how you're dosing it, how much of it that you are dosing, and how is your client sleep? Because obviously, again, it's a stress on the body, right? Client is a stress on the body because it's something that shouldn't, it has impacts on things that it's an external thing, basically. Like we shouldn't be using it, let alone. I mean, I know it's used for like asthmatics and things, but well, that's what its background is used in asthmatics, but regardless, like in the dosages that bodybuilders use it and things, it's going to be causing some element of stress. So if you're already stressed or your body's already stressed and you're not going to get any sleep, then that's an additional stress. And then you're just creating an environment for unresponsiveness. And you're here as a coach being like, why aren't things moving? When
mm,
it's probably that. It's a
yeah.
systemic stress that the clen is causing.
For sure. People don't think about this and anabolics. It's like, oh, this is this physique outcome. And it's like, you're not meant to use these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah,
They're not
exactly. That's
actually,
it. Like,
they're not like a good, quote unquote, a good thing. It's
mm,
obviously an outcome we're after. And of course, you can chase the dragon with anything. I remember the first prep using Clen, like Matt had to hide it in the end because I was just like, I keep wanting to take it after in the reverse out because I'm like you, I like staying lean.
yeah.
And we've got addictive personalities, haven't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever used like modafinil?
I tried it because my friend diagnosed me with ADHD and he was like, try modafinil. And I was like, I took it and I was like, I feel okay. So I don't know if it was a good one or not, but I felt all
Mm,
right. You?
mm. Yeah, I think it's really useful actually. Like I use it quite often if I have like really heavy work days because I do really struggle with I don't think I have ADHD. I think I'm just stressed. Like someone asked me that the other day. He was I was in London doing this business thing and he was like hi, it was like some American guy. He was one of his name's Galel and he's got like some amazing business. He was like, "Hey Sarah, do you have ADHD?" And I was like, no, Galel, I'm just stressed." And
I
he was
love
like,
that.
okay. And yeah, and I use modafinil because my brain does tend to so wander. So like if I'm just working on a check-in, I'll be like, oh, I need to message this, and I'll go to that message and then forget the check-in here, or I'll respond to that check-in 10 minutes later, and then I'll be like, oh, I need to do this, and then go there, and then yeah, and it's like, and modafinil just helps me stay focused and I'm not distracted by this external noise. Whether that is ADHD, I don't know, but it's just because I've got a lot going on.
Yeah, yeah. From modafinil, from friends that use it, it's like it gives you a tunnel vision, I guess is what you're describing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
focus on
And for
one.
things like for training, it's really good. Like for the big demanding sessions. So like for example, tomorrow, if like I've got legs, I want to be I'm not that I'm not focused, but it is that tunnel vision focus. So you just take 20 milligram, like 100 milligrams of modafinil. I think it's, yeah, 100 milligrams, like half a tab, and it just hones you in a little bit more. You don't feel like you're hearing so much outside of the gym. You're literally just in here, and once I'm training, I'm done with training. Because a lot of my, and I was saying this on a call a minute ago, a lot of my like, if I'm coming up with ideas, I'm going to come up with them when I'm training because I'm already in like a really, I guess like a motivated mindset. Not I'm not motivated all the time, but like when you're training, it's slightly different. And modafinil, I can be really kind of like I can explore things much more. I'm much more like open to ideas, and I come up with so much more on modafinil because I am so tunnel vision. So like content ideas, I'll be like bosh it down on a notepad. Or whereas if I didn't take it, I'm still kind of motivated, but it's a bit like, oh, just kind of slog through that at 50 miles per hour. Where you're on modafinil, you're going at 1,000. And again, they mean they call it the study drug, right? Because a lot of students use it for dissertations and things like that. It can be very addictive. This is why I only kind of dose it when I really need it. So if you're thinking, if anyone's listening to this and you're thinking about using modafinil, just be very careful with it because it is very addictive because it also heightens your mood. So if you're in like a really low place, you'll get a natural heighten of mood from this drug. Um, so again, it's that can make it really kind of addicting, but it's very good if you just have a really busy day and you need to get a lot of work done. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And as also, and Galel was like, if there are tools, much like that peptide chat that we had before we jumped on here, if there are tools that can make us better and control what is something that sometimes could be negative, then why not use it if it's going to help you? Which I agree with, but to some extent, we don't want to be excessive with it.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because it's like
Mm.
if you then have consecutive weeks where you're busy every day, you can easily fall
Yeah.
into the rabbit hole. And it's, I guess, with what you're saying there, it's being aware of that, but also sort of calling yourself out if you start to use things too much consecutively and realize that actually maybe like your monster, have a couple of weeks
Yeah.
and be able but it's hard because it's that like, oh well, I'll just have a little bit more, I'll just have a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we get into these rabbit holes with all of this stuff, and I think it's important to have that self-awareness and be able to monitor it yourself or with your coach. And always, guys, try and be honest with your coach. I mean, we've both done things where I've definitely spanked
Oh yeah.
things. Oh well, I don't mind up in the dose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
But
already
again,
upped
you
it three
learn. But
times.
yeah, and then it's like, oh God, I'm gonna have to take ownership for this. But that's because we often, both of us, are chasing getting as shredded as humanly possible, and
Yeah.
it's our personality.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like as I've kind of like, grown in more experience and stuff, like I do try and have more stimulant breaks, because I just feel, especially since dropping the monsters out, I don't know, I just feel, and even like fizzy drinks, like I don't think I've had like a fizzy drink outside of going for dinner, which was last week, and even then, I'm just not, I don't know what's happened. Maybe I'm broken.
Well, I mean, sometimes you get to a point in off season where you're just quite satisfied.
Yeah, like I just don't really want them. And then again, when it comes to prep and I want a monster, then it's like it would be nice. So yeah, but I think having breaks from stimulants is something that should be implemented, like every maybe 12-ish weeks. I think you should have like at least a week from like a week away from stimulants, and then just slowly reintroduce them if you feel that you need them. Like for me, like I used to be really bad when I was younger with stimulants. Like I used to fucking pound pre-workouts like nobody's business until I had an incident, which we'll go into in a minute, with some caffeine. And for me, like that, having that pre-workout is flicks the switch. So it's very much, if you gave me a pot of squash and told me it's a pre-workout before training, it's that placebo effect. And I would think it's pre-workout. I'd lock in. That for me, my drink of pre-workout to the gym is my way of locking in. So like so when I had that incident with the stimulants, I then just moved over to pump, and I still get my pre-workout, but I don't get the hit of stimulants that was too much. Do you know what I mean? So I'm still getting that placebo effect. So if you're someone that is having a break from stims or whatever, you can still use a pre-workout. Just use a pump non-stim. Like there's so many good ones on the market nowadays that you can still have that pre-workout if it's part of your, I guess, your pre-training ritual.
Yeah, we do have rituals, and there's so many people that like have that routine of like, this is what I need to do before I train and
Mm.
train. What happened with the caffeine?
Oh, so so like when I was signed with Alpha, he's run by Adrian. He's lovely, Adrian. Have you met Adrian from Alpha?
No, I
Oh,
know who Alpha is though, but yeah.
yeah, he's the best. So like Alpha Neon are known for like their ridiculous stim, like super high stim pre-workouts. And he used to have a gym in Cirencester that was like a real dungy gym. Like you go in and it was kind of just like a bit of a mess, and it's a real spit and sawdust gym. And it was like one evening, so I would always have a monster on the way to the gym, and then I would have like a pre-workout. So he had like a dark side. It was called Dark Side, and it was like one of his strongest ones. I can't remember. I think it was like two scoops was like just under 400 milligrams of caffeine or something stupid like that. So I double scooped it before I went to train. Love it. Great. Felt good. Monster in a double scoop. So that's already like fucking stupid amounts of stimulants, right? I went in and I was like, "Hey, Adrian, do you have any like of your pump? Because I always mix pump with my stim because I love pumps." So so I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh yeah, there's some behind the desk. Just go and have some and take it, whatever." And it was like it was labeled with Pump TF. That's his pump product, and inside it was Dark Side. So I then took another two scoops of Dark Side, thinking it was pumped, being like, "Oh, it's fine. It's pumped. It'd be good." And then I just had a fucking sick session. But then after, I thought I was gonna die. I lost like 5 kilos over a space of like 24 hours. I was lying on the sofa and my heart was just like fucking beating out of my chest. I couldn't eat or anything. So I must have had just under like a gram of like a gram of caffeine that day.
Like a
I
short space of time.
fucking it was awful. And after that, I was like, never again. Couldn't touch stimulants for ages because my heart was just because I was lying there and I was thinking, I'm gonna have to go to hospital. This is just so horrible.
This
But
is the
yeah,
thing with stim use, though. There are cases where people do have to go. It's wild.
crazy. Yeah, crazy. So, and after that, I was like, I can't. Even if I use like do not fucking miss from JP, that for me is too strong. Like you know, some days it'll hit us different. Like, but a lot of the time I just don't. I'm just it, and because I'm heavy, because my heart's racing 10 times fucking 10,000 beats a minute, I then can't recover between sets. And because I'm moving and shifting quite a lot of weight, it obviously takes me a while to recover anyway. So if
Mm.
I'm already I can't settle my heart rate down before I train or before I go into the next set, then it just becomes fucking counterproductive. And
Yeah.
also as well, we must remember that caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. So it's going to impact our ability to get a pump also. So it's kind of just about thinking, right, how tired am I to detriment my pump? You know, we all go to the gym for a pump, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, and it was horrendous. But I remember waking up being like, holy fucking shit, I'm gonna die. Horrendous, mate, horrendous.
Yeah.
Great pre-workout though.
Approach with caution.
Yeah, yeah. God bless him. Nah,
Oh.
fucking yeah, it was.
What a wild time. What a wild time. Now, before we say goodbye, what is your favorite monster? What color?
Oh, fucking hell. It used to be white, but I can't sit with white anymore. It gives me like, you know, when you get like a clammy mouth, it gives me clammy mouth. Um, I'm like digging a roser at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah, one of those nice and cold, fucking banging. But
Yeah.
then I am also an OG monster girl. Like I love the green one. Obviously the zero sugar green one. That's
Yeah.
fucking bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
We
is
don't have the calorie ones.
yeah, fuck that shit.
When you have the calorie ones, I'm like, you can eat a whole meal.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? 50 grams of sugar in that bastard. Fucking crazy.
Do
Crazy.
not do it, guys. Please, unless you're like stupidly height of off season. But then, do you need a monster anyway? Because you've got so much food. If
Oh,
you're needing to switch that for 50 grams of carbs, just use the dextrose.
yeah, yeah, fucking hell. Oh, I didn't even know what they taste like, the full sugar ones. Probably
No.
like you're just drinking a sack of sugar.
Just have honey on a rice cake, guys. Chill out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I know, man. But
Thank
yeah, it's
you.
crazy. But yeah, so that's pretty. What's your favorite, Rosa?
Yeah, I do like white, but I'm digging the rosy at the moment. Like literally in the
Mm.
last week, well, in this mini cart, I've just been like, oh, I fancy something different. Oh, there's a pink one. Oh, this is nice.
Yeah. Oh, it's pink. Love it. Love it.
I love it,
You get
Mike.
some sick energy drinks over in the States. Like some of them are so cool. I always go over there and bring like 20 cans back just so I can have them. They're
I
cool.
told you we've got an addictive personality, guys.
Yeah. Bringing 30 cans back just to experience the energy drinks from over the road.
Like normal people would bring from America chocolate. We're like, let's bring some monsters home. Sugar free.
Love it. Yeah. Fucking love it. But
Thank
yeah,
you for
that's
watching.
it. Mm,
You're the best.
no problem. Thank you for asking me. That's my stories with stimulants.
Yes, well, this will be over Christmas, so people will be digging into chocolates and hearing about stimulants. Why
What's
not?
What's your favorite Christmas snack? Here we go.
The thing is, until Matt, I for the whole of bodybuilding, like by the time I met him, it was like 11, 10 years. I'd never had snacks. I'd always been meal one, two, three, four, five.
Yeah.
I'd never had
Yeah.
snacks.
Where's your like I always think about this, right? Like when I think about like retiring and stuff, I'm like, why or even now, like what is breakfast? It's meal one, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
And he the first time we were on like a road trip, he was like, "Oh, we get some road snacks," and I was like, "I feel really uncomfortable. I
yeah.
don't
This isn't
understand."
meal one, two, three, or four, or five.
Yeah. And it was just like a couple of biscuits, and I was like, "This is actually quite nice." So over Christmas, what would I have? Because I don't really like mince pies.
Ah, fair. That's fair. Mince pies can go either way for a lot of people.
Yeah, and like the little chocolates and stuff, like they're okay, but like you can just eat a chocolate bar. So
Yeah.
maybe like some shortbread or something. I
Oh,
don't
fucking bang of shortbread,
know.
mate.
Okay, but I
Yeah,
did
no
I
problem.
did good. I did good.
Yeah. I am a sweet person though. I'm not a savory gal.
Yeah,
I could yeah, I would stick my dick in a pick and mix any day.
that
Any day.
Matt loves picking me. Like I'm just erring on being able to accept stuff like that, like a sweet. I'm like, this is really weird. But so many people love pick a mix.
So many. It's quite surprising how many do love pick and mix. Crazy.
What's your favorite sweets?
Oh, Percy Pigs all day.
Oh,
I fucking love a Percy Pig, me.
do you have sweets on show day?
You know what? I've never had sweets on show day. Never ever. I've only I've only ever had, and I don't know, for me, again, it's like if I don't have this on show day, then I automatically think I'm gonna lose. So it's like and it's just part of my ritual for show day. I have to have the same bed sheets, I have to have the same food going into it. And I have to wear the same t-shirt. I can't that's just the way I am. And I've always just had rice cakes, dark chocolate honey. That's always been, even if I have to eat, because I remember between pre-judge and finals for Texas, we just loaded and loaded and loaded. And I had to eat fucking 10, 20 rice cakes, but I was like, I won't steer the ship any other way. I have to have those. But that's yeah, just honey, rice cakes, and dark chocolate.
Easy to digest. And
Mm.
what's your favorite Christmas snack?
Hmm. Oh, that's such a hard thing to ask.
Yeah.
You
Like
know what? I do love the biscuit selection boxes.
I like
That
I like the Fox's round.
oh fuck yeah. That's so good. Aren't they just?
Yeah.
I could
Genuinely,
demolish
like,
biscuits. I really could. See,
yeah.
when people are like, I struggle doing the 10,000 calorie challenge, I'm like,
I always think this,
yeah, I
but I
know.
think it's the choices of food. Like, surely you could think like there's so many things that are so high calorie.
Mm,
Like peanut
e-
butter Reese's. Like
exactly. Easy. Easy, mate.
the peanut butter Reese's Santa.
Oh, they're good. They're banging. They're banging.
But when you look at the calories, you're like, oh my God.
See, I just don't look at them. If it's not on my meal plan, then it simply has no calories.
Yeah, I like Reese's advent calendars or dairy milk.
Oh, the classic.
Do you
Classic.
have any advent calendar every year?
We haven't, but well, every year we have had one, I think. We haven't got ours yet, but we probably will.
That's
Cute.
like a romantic gesture.
Yeah, here's an advent calendar.
Here you go, wifey.
Yeah,
I love
it's so
it.
true. It
I
is
love
true.
it. Well,
But yeah,
guys,
um, we
obviously,
completely went off on a weird tangent then, to be
they've
fair.
just had insight into our actual brain. When we're not a coach head, a podcast, that this is us. Like this is
Yeah,
our.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love
And
it.
I mean, if you want to apply for coaching, Sarah has applications
Absolutely.
available.
Come on in.
You come on
Have a
into
good.
the fucking crazy club.
Hey, that's what Small Mighty is all about. Small but crazy, mate.
Yeah, we love it. We fucking love it. Mind you,
Mm,
thank you, of course.
no problem. No problem. Always love to have a gaggle and a chat with you, my love.
Yes, me too. I love
Mm,
you.
I love you, mate. All right, sweet.
Soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Here we have guest number 4, the one. My forever friend, Tim. Welcome back to the podcast, my G.
Hello, hello, hello.
If you haven't listened, guys, Tim and I have done podcasts before where we've spoken about PEDs. Obviously, you were on the Trend Tales as well. And again, there's that extension, I guess, of the exploration of of the PD route. And when you're talking about, of course, mental health mindset, when we think about the stim use as well, that offers sometimes for some people a whole world of exploration in the mind, right? When we bring in different compounds.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, when I first get on your him bone, I feel the most anxious I have ever felt in my entire existence. I will spend the next 24 hours after I wake up, do my first year him bind of the prep. That 24 hours after that is the worst in my mind. Like, I am wired, I am paranoid, I am anxious, and I cannot settle at all. I'm cold sweating. I don't know what, receptors are super sensitive in my body and my brain to have that effect, because I've spoken to multiple people and it doesn't have that effect on them.
Yeah.
But then I'll pop a clem and I'm absolutely fine. Like, it's hit and miss. It's really strange. But actually saying that, on my first cycle of Clen on this prep, it made me feel super low.
Okay.
But that was paired with 1 hour of Stairmaster a day and low food. So you can't blame it all on the Sims. It's all in synergy. It's all working together to bring your mood down. And that's what I try and say to people, start taking Clen and you might feel a little bit low, but remember, it's not just the Clen that's contributing towards it. It is the whole prep. It is literally everything. You're not meant to walk around on, I don't know, a minus 2000 deficit or whatever it is you're on. As humans, we're not supposed to walk around with that, and that plays a massive effect on the mental health side of things. Massive. And then you start adding stimulants in like Clen, like your Himbion, and it just overstimulates you. And then you're adding in, don't forget, you've got the 5 monsters you drink a day, the 5 coffees you drink a day. You're getting 2 grams of caffeine in alongside that. What do you think your central nervous system is going to do with that? It's going to skyrocket and then come back down with a crash. And you're going to just feel awful with that.
Yeah, it's quite hard, I think, sometimes until you've visited those places to sort of explain it. And I guess you've sort of landed on something there with anyone listening that maybe hasn't used stims and maybe would consider it in future preps, or if anyone naturals listening and they're looking at the assisted route for the next prep, etc. It's really quite hard to quantify what it feels like because as we do in 2025, it's like take this and this burns calories. And okay, I'll take that. So it's a very easy transaction, as it were. But it's what you actually face in your mind and the physiological adaptations that occur as you've described there in a deficit when you put something like stimulants in. It's a wild space. And actually, when we look at it, this is where I always talk about your support network, having people around you, having your life ideally in a quite a good spot, as it were. When's the right time? Of course, Tim. When, but
Yeah.
if there's things in potentially in your life that aren't okay, and there's things that are sort of being skirted over, even, and this is aside from other compounds, because normally you're using Clen on top of other compounds as well. Even putting something like Clen or Euhimbine in, perhaps that could unearth things that actually, when things aren't okay in your personal life, it could really skyrocket you, couldn't it?
It could. It's because, for example, when I started my cleanse cycle, I was feeling down for a couple of days and I couldn't work it out what it was because nothing had really changed, but it was exacerbating the effects of anything that was making me slightly down. It was now becoming bigger. And I can only link that to the cleanse that went in. And I think that is part of when it brings your central nervous system up because it speeds your heart up and everything. To then it coming down again, that's when the dip sort of happens. So it's one of them things. It's like you have to absolutely be mentally in a good place to start these stimulants, to start these compounds. Like you say, you're taking it alongside other compounds. So everything within this PED world, is going to affect your mental health in some way, shape, or form. So if you are in a good place mentally, you can probably handle it. If you are not, and if you have problems going on, it's gonna make them 10 times worse.
And it's, we're driven by the physique, aren't we? So it's like, oh, that doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
you do hear a lot of stuff in the when you're in the space like we are, we hear the stories that maybe people listening might not hear. They maybe just see the Instagram post of people looking amazing on stage, etc. But you hear of, problems in relationships behind closed doors. You hear of loads and loads of stuff, really the mental health declining over a prep. And this is where, again, it's an oversight, isn't it, into stimulant use? Because as you outlined, you're having the coffees, you're having the monsters. So that's stimulants. And I think if you have them anyway, you don't think it's even doing anything, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm immune to caffeine. And then you're topping it up. So you're going up and up and up. What's the highest dose you've run of Clen yourself?
120 micrograms. That's
Same.
the highest I've run. But I've known tiny girls that have ran 160. And it's like, do you need to necessarily be running that much?
Very high.
Very high, like extremely. Like that will mess your mental health up, surely. And I mean, the one person that I did know that was taking that, yeah, they were not in a good place. They're really not. So you got to think, right, okay, my coach is telling me to take this much, but I am allowed to question the coach because I'm paying them.
Yeah.
It's an absolute no-brainer. If you are paying a coach, you have every single right to question their decisions with your body.
Yeah. And there's a difference, isn't there? It's like if you go to a coach and say, could you sort of educate me on why we're doing this or and frame it like that.
Yeah,
Ideally the coach would want to do that, right? Like
100%. If they're a responsible coach, they
yeah.
would come back to you and be like, absolutely, I can educate you on this. Not a problem at all. You're paying me for a service. I will give you that service. And that's part of the service. It's all about education. At the end of the day, I've known people in the past, competitors in the past, athletes. They've just willfully gone blindly into taking ridiculous amounts of gear, heads, whatever. And I question them. I'm like, why are you taking that much? I'm taking less than half of that. And they're like, oh, I don't know, my coach said. It's like, right, cool. But why? Because this is gonna hurt your body in some way, shape, or form. So you need to be questioning things. And like you say, do it in a correct way. Do it in a, you know, approachable way where you're saying, can you just educate me on this? Is that okay? And if they say no, they're not a good coach. They are not a good coach at all. They're not responsible. They don't care about your health. I know that's rich coming from a bodybuilder, but
But
because let's face it, we are not the healthiest bunch of people. But they should be able to guide you in a educational way.
yeah. And when it like even, stimulants, if you're talking to a client, it's like this is what we could deploy, as it were, or whatever. This is the protocol.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the way. But this might be the titration model over your preparation. This is what we might experience. Is if at any point this doesn't feel okay, I want you to let me. Like there's, it's important because if you're forced to do anything, guys, anyone listening, and it's like, or you feel forced, that's not okay. It really is not okay because as you said, Tim, like we're not the healthiest bunch of individuals, especially when we're pushing to the extremes. But generally speaking, bodybuilding is meant to take you on this sort of journey of self-exploration and hopefully give back to your life rather than as an example. if you were quite an anxious person and you used your him buying and it absolutely sent you into a different space and it was like, this is not okay, we need to be able to go, I'm not okay with this as a client. Like, and there's, if you're really anxious from a compound, is that going to deliver the physique response that we'd want anyway? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, you're going to have high amounts of cortisol from that. You're going to end up storing water. You're going to end up not training properly. You know, your body's just going to suffer and your physique's going to suffer with that. For example, when I talk about that Yahim buying experience, it was on my last prep. So I said to my coach, I can't take it. And he was fine with that. There was no question. It was like, right, cool, just take Clennon, not a problem. And it's like, I know my own body. And I know that if I kept taking Yahim buying, I would just feel absolutely awful. And I don't want to feel awful. Like, I don't mind suffering, obviously. You know, I'm used to that. But I don't want to feel mentally anxious walking around
Yeah, yeah.
like a crazy person, you know? Sorry, I use that word loosely.
Yeah,
But
well,
you
we
know
are.
what I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It,
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. So I just communicate that straight away. Straight away, he was like, yeah, that's fine. Not a problem.
mm,
And that's a good coach. That's listening to the clients, and just being responsible. I mean, the opposite of that is we've heard a lot of stories recently with, I know one female NPC athlete passed away earlier this year from diuretic use, you know, that her coach put her on. And things like that are just irresponsible because I can't remember if it was like a certain compound or whatever they used, but I remember there being some controversy around it, and there has been quite a few examples in the last 2 or 3 years where we've had that happen, and it's like, is it worth it?
so upsetting.
Yeah, it's horrible. You know, if you had to come, you know, imagine as a parent, you've lost your son or daughter to bodybuilding. It's like, okay, yeah, it's their passion, but you shouldn't ever die from bodybuilding. I
And
know you're pushing your body to the extreme, to the limits, but it has to be done in a responsible and relatively safe way.
yeah, it's that whole like it's this is the physique outcome I'm gonna get. I'll just do whatever's necessary, and that's it's like your example of the person you met, and you're like, I'm running less than half of what you're running, and I see this, at my gym, and I think you're running 3 grams of gear, and you don't really look like you lift, and that's not being. I'm not trying to be horrible here, but it's like you could actually take so much gear that this could lead you into a mental health spiral, death, as you say, things that can happen. And you're doing it for a physique outcome, but it's not giving.
Working.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've seen examples of this in the past. So I ask them what they're running, and they say X, Y, Z, and I'm like, that's more than me, and you're half the size of me.
and you're a
Are you eating? Are you doing the fundamentals? Are you eating?
yes,
No, they're clearly not, because food is the number one factor of growth. That is number one. That is it. Food, calories in. Simple as that. If you are not eating and you're taking 3 grams of gear, guess what's going to happen? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You're just going to put a hell of a lot of stress on your liver, on your kidneys, on your heart, on your brain. And for what? You don't even look like you lift. It's crazy.
it is because also, you got to think you're a competitor, I'm a competitor. Like, if you're going down this route, and that's stimulants as well, guys, like, it's got to be doing the fundamentals, surely has got to be the non-negotiable before you would put something in your body. And I understand we all do stuff, right? Like, it's, oh, fuck it. Everyone has these things, but it's depths of, trying to get a physique outcome if you're not brought into the actual bodybuilding. As you say, like organ damage, this isn't a joke. Like, this is big.
Yeah, massive. And I think this is why I have a lot of respect for natural athletes, actually, because they have to do the fundamentals right. They have to get the food right because that's what they rely on. They're not relying on gear. They're
Yeah.
not relying on peds. So actually, when you put it like that, it's like, okay, well, natural athletes, I know natural athletes that have then gone on gear. Oh my God, they respond amazingly because they've already got that knowledge of food.
And the fundamentals are in place.
It's all in place. And then they add the cherry on top, which is the peds. And look at that, boom. They just look incredible.
And they fall in love with their journey, right? Like, and again, I feel like there's a bit of a divide sometimes against natural and assisted, and it's like really there should be a respect, and a lot of people that come on the pod that are natural are like, I respect PD assisted athletes and vice versa because really back to our talks at the start, right? Like we're all doing this thing to hopefully try and enhance our lives, go on this journey and exercise gratitude, get positives from it. But then it's this whole sort of darkness and this realm that we're entering, and this is why podcasts and having these talks are super important because there are individuals like yourself, Tim, that are in the space where it's like we really just love the bodybuilding.
That's it. I don't care if you're natural or enhanced. I couldn't care less. Like, I couldn't give a shit. If you're working hard, if you're grafting towards being better, I will have a respect for you. And that is simple as that. I don't care if you use 300 grams of tren.
Not the trend. Ah.
You know what I mean? I said 300 grams. I meant 300 milligrams. You'd be dead with 300 grams. Jesus.
It is though. It's like it's so, and this is why the awareness of doing a podcast like this, it's so, I guess, it's skimmed over when it's like you would think that, and this is Clen is like something that people use when they're just using the gym as a hobby and they want to lose some weight. And I get, right, like you're looking to make this potentially a bit quicker, or I don't know if I'd say easier, but to a certain degree, easier perhaps. We've got the route of obviously the GLP-1s and stuff like this now as well, which is a whole nother realm.
Oh, yeah.
But like Clen is almost like having a coffee now.
Yeah, literally. Just pop a clem pill, no problem. But then they don't think about, it hardens the heart walls. It does stuff to you that you cannot see. And you will not see until you have a heart attack at the age of 60. It's like, it's just it's again, it's going back to the having the knowledge, the education of it. Because at least if you know what it's doing to your body, to your heart, etc., to your arteries, you will have this understanding that, okay, now I can be responsible for myself. Now I can get my blood work done every 6 months, whatever. Now I can go give blood to thin out my blood, etc., etc. You can do all the right things to stay in the healthiest spot possible. Take all the health supplements alongside it. Because I know multiple people that don't have a clue about what health supplements to take alongside ped use. And it's like, that is I mean, I know nothing can bulletproof you against it, but that's your bread and butter right there. If PEDS is your bread, the supplements that go alongside it to help you is your butter. And they should always go together synergistically, always, because that is responsible PED use then. And you're not getting into the realms of, right, let's shove, I don't know, as a starting cycle as an 18-year-old, let's shove 500 milligrams of test in, 800 milligrams of mass. Oh, and I'll just put 300 milligrams of tren in for the sake of it. Oh, and then I'll go some Manavar, and then I'll go some Winnie,
Normal.
and then I'll go some Clen. And it's like, dude, what the hell? Like, and then I won't eat. And it's like, oh, okay, you're fucked. You are fucked.
Or like it becomes this sort of like I'll go and have my McDonald's after, and
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's
it's
like, I'm bulking. Okay, great. But you're going to fuck up your body so bad. You're going to look like shit. And like so many guys in the gym look like shit.
the skin.
the skin, the gut. Like you can't look in the mirror with a gut and think, yeah, I look good. I'm bulking. No, it does, no, you shouldn't ever think that you look good with a gut. Like, I'm sorry, but no. If you are using PEDs, if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, you shouldn't have a fat gut.
And the thing is as well, it all correlates, doesn't it, with the nutrition choices. The,
Mm.
you know, if you're gonna do potentially, and I know people will probably come after me for this, Tim, but maybe you do a bit of cardio in off season. Everyone's like, no, I don't want to do off season cardio. But
No,
like even just some general, like you don't have to turn into a potato, guys. Like it's not, you don't have to do that. But
no.
again, this is where Tim and I are talking about general health as a bodybuilder. When you look at cardiovascular health, when you look at what nutrition you're having in and off season, like this is so you're potentially living a bit longer here, guys. Like I know it's fucking boring and whatever, but it's true. Like, do you just want to do this for like 2 years or? I,
Yeah, I mean, it does go back to, I mean, the number one thing is nutrition. It is. That's going to depend on how you look at the end of the day. If you go through an off season keeping your food clean, you will look 100% better than if you're going to have a Mackey's every day, if you're going to have a pizza, if you're going to have just really shit food. You're going to look shit. Shit food equals shit look. It's as simple as that. And you got to also think about this is where it comes into the gut biome, the health of your gut. That will depend on your look. So if your gut is healthy, you'll look healthy. It's as simple as that. The gut is the second brain, and it controls a lot of things in your body. So this is why people that, we're going on to a tangent here, but if you are intolerant to dairy, to gluten, to anything, you will see that on your body. You will have a bloat, you will have bad skin breakouts, you will, I don't know, have bad nails, whatever. It will come out in your physical appearance somehow. So once you remove that and you take that out, then those ailments in your physical appearance, they disappear because your gut is in a happy place. So I don't know. The more people, that I've educated clients on this over the years so many times, and it's like they come to me like, right, I feel bloated. It's like, right, okay, let's sort your nutrition out. Let's go into, first of all, go and get an allergy test. That's number one, because then you can simply see what your body doesn't like. And if you're putting that in, I mean, the number one culprit is probably lactose and dairy
oh,
in general. It's very manufactured, let's say. It's got a lot of crap in it, which your gut doesn't like. And then gluten as well. So those two things a lot of people are intolerant to these days, but they don't know it. They don't have no idea. They're just going through life bloated and they think that's normal. I certainly did. That's coming from experience.
yeah.
I didn't know about it until the age of probably 30. When I started competing and I started really looking into my nutrition and that, I was like, right, this is why I'm bloated. Cool. Okay, now I can sort it out. And now I have no bloat anytime at all. And I know what's going to cause me a bloat. So I know when for example, if I have like an off-plan meal, I know I'm likely going to get a bloat from that. I'm going to feel uncomfortable, but it's worth it because
Well, again, it is the thing because if you've got like whether it's an intolerance or a sensitivity, it's like you start to know what the sort of trigger foods are in and out quote there of like, okay, so if I do have XYZ, probably gonna pay for it, but sometimes we make that call as long as it's not like a celiac or something. Obviously, if it's more of the sensitivity, it's like you sometimes go, okay, I'm gonna take it's the risk versus reward of off plan.
But I mean, in the first place, like people just don't know. They have no idea that this food is causing them to feel like this because they go through every day feeling like it and they think it's normal.
Yeah.
They think like 5 toilet trips a day is normal, or they think 0 toilet trips a day is normal.
Hmm.
It's like that's really not. You should be regular each day, and that shows a healthy good.
It's
You
not
know,
till you dig into it as a coach, is it? And it's like, I absolutely love it, Tim. I'm sure you're the same. When I start with a client, and within a week they're having daily bowel movements, and they haven't had bowel movements like a proper bowel movement for could be months.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you actually get their body working and responding properly how it should as a human body.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just because they've changed their food. That's it.
yeah. And they're like, you're God. I'm like, yes, I am. I am God. I love it. Now,
Crazy. Yeah.
but before we wrap up, what phase are you in at the moment? What's the plans right now? Do you know? What's the
I've got 9 days till competition, my next
yeah?
one. Yeah. So I'm doing the PCA British Finals Pro Show next Saturday, the 18th of October. I've just done the Amateur Olympia Italy on Sunday, just gone in Milan. I came 6th out of 15, so not too shabby. I was very happy with that. I was really pleased with that. I wanted to come in first call out, and I did. I made it.
That's the best. That's the best.
It was unreal. I came in a bit flat. I wasn't the best, that I could have been. But I made it into first call outs, and that was what I came for. That's what I wanted. I was one place off a medal. I didn't get a medal, but it is what it is. It's like at the end of the day, it's just a physical object. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I've got the memory of being in first call outs at the Amateur Olympia. And that is massive. That just made me so, so happy. And then 3 weeks ago, I did the Two Bros regional qualifier and I came second. So not too displeased with that. Like, yeah, happy. Obviously, I'd love a win, but that's at the end of the day, it's bodybuilding. I will not, and I keep saying this to my clients as well, do not ever go into a show expecting a win.
For sure.
And I think I've said this on every podcast with you because
Really?
I like to preach it. If you go into a show expecting a win, you're going to be very disappointed if you don't, and you're going to just think about it for a long, long time. So if you go into a show not expecting a thing,
Doing your best.
just bring your best. That's all that matters. The only thing that matters on the day of the show is bringing your absolute best physique. That is it. And that's what you've built months, you've worked hard for months. Don't forget that 5 minutes on stage there, that should be your best ever physique right there. If you win, amazing. If you come fifth, at least you brought your best physique.
Yeah. And then I'll remind you of when you said the only way you're gonna change the judges' minds is if you come back stronger.
Exactly. That's what I said, and I'll stand by that forever. It's one of the things you just got to get better.
Yeah, and
Got to improve.
it's brutal. It is brutal, competitive bodybuilding. But guys, remember this is competitive bodybuilding, right? Like it's meant to be hard, like it is, and that's often why we pursue it because we are a little bit cray cray.
Definitely.
I love it. I love it. But of course, this is going to be released at the end of the year, so we would have by then you would have competed. It will be Christmas.
Yes.
We'll
Come
be
on.
vibing hard. So
I'll be starting with a massive gut, and then I'll be like, "Oh, you know that thing I said about having a massive gut in bodybuilding?" I'll be eating
um,
my own words.
I've
I'm
sort of
terrified.
slipped and ate some cheesecake and some mince pies. Sorry,
Oh
guys.
my God. I'll be sitting here looking like Santa, or I'll grow my beard and it'll be white and everything because I'm old now. Oh my God. Yeah. So hopefully I won't be fat by the time this is released. And if I am, then I can just shut up and eat my own words, can't I? So
Guys, feel free to call him out if you look on his Instagram and he's turned into a real life Santa.
yeah, please do. I don't mind.
I
Uh,
love it. I love it.
I'll take accountability for it. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to be your accountability partner. And as always, Tim, thank you. I really appreciate you. My forever BB friend, and of course, human friend as well, because we're humans as well.
We are human. We're not just bodybuilders. A dog is for life, not just for Christmas,
For sure, my
and all
friend.
that. A bodybuilder is for life.
Of course, I'm going to
Oh
see you
man.
after the pro show as well, my G.
Oh man, it's gonna be, yeah, I can't wait. It's just gonna be so good. Like I love competing. I love it. I don't care what stage it's on, I just love it.
Just get me on that fucking stage.
Get on me. I don't care if I'm ready or not. Just get me on stage.
Yeah, I love
I'll
it.
be like that guy, you know that reel where the guy's just tanned up and he's got those yellow shorts on and he's not in any shape at all. And he's like, yeah, I lost the bet. Yeah,
Yeah, that's Tim when he's 90.
that'd be me. Yeah, that'd be me at 90 years old. Yeah. Oh man.
I love it. Well, guys, as you can tell, we love bodybuilding.
We do. We do.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, my G.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me on as always. I appreciate it.
All the love, and I'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys, we have the one and only, as I always introduce you, Tony Huge is with us to talk about, well, I'm sure you've got some good stories on stimulant use, right?
Yeah, what do you want to know? I still use stimulants today, so I'm experimenting constantly.
Yeah, I feel like that's a valid point in itself that this is what I do. I experiment, it's super cool because there's so many things we can actually try and gain the personal anecdote before we talk about it.
Hmm.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love the world of bodybuilding, especially your world because you have all the stories. So maybe we start with, can you remember when you first used stimulants?
Whoa, that's a good question. Holy cow. You know, back long, long time ago, the most powerful stimulant that was available from the supplement store, like a GNC, was hot stuff because it had ephedrine in it.
Okay.
And so some of those early supplements had ephedrine, but I was afraid of ephedrine at the time
Mm.
because I was kind of a natural guy long before I, opened the door to extreme bodybuilding chemistry. So back then, I was actually not using a lot of stimulants. It would be pre-workout, but even then, I would try not to overdo it. But I remember a couple incidents. I remember the first time I took a mega dose of a stimulant was when I was a kid, and it was Jolt. It was like a Coca-Cola drink, and it had, massive amount of caffeine. It was like the Monster Energy drink of back then. And so that was the first time I ever got to feel what it was like to have a high stimulant amount. And it kind of scared me from stimulants in the future.
Mm.
Nothing bad happened, but I just felt like I went crazy.
Mm.
I was like running all over the place. I was laughing uncontrollably. I was sweating. It was euphoric. It was like I was on drugs.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I realized the power of stimulants, and I've always just been like really cautious not to go there because I felt like I totally lost control of myself there. And then of course the big crash afterwards, you like sleep a whole day. So when I first started using it for the gym, I guess it was pre-workout,
Mm.
yeah, and still moderate amount. And I remember I remember I would it was a combination of the stimulant plus stimulating my own adrenaline,
Mm.
like getting myself all excited. I had seen, even when I was really young, the videos of powerlifters slapping each other in the face and getting pumped up about something. So I knew that this phenomenon existed to where your body could produce its own natural stimulants that would give you that same stimulant rush that would increase performance. Yeah. So those are my early thoughts about stimulants long, long ago.
I feel like you raised a valid point there, actually, and none of the other guests have said about yet. When you take something that feels so extreme, and actually you get in the gym and you're like, I've got to try and lift weights here, when it like takes you past that,
Yeah.
and it,
Yeah. Exactly. And caffeine, it's easy for me to cross that threshold with caffeine. Not my favorite stimulant, but because a lot of people can pound energy drinks and all that, but I just find there's this threshold. If my blood sugar drops and the caffeine is too high, then I feel like my heart starts blah, 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 going really fast and I feel weak and shaky. So
Yeah.
I'm just so careful not to cross that threshold that I use less stimulant, like less than I probably could or should, because I'm so cautious not to cross that threshold.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to like Clen, Yohimbine, I'm sure you've experimented with both of them. Do you get on okay with those stims?
I'm sensitive to both. So yohimbine is extremely effective for me for burning stubborn body fat. I can't imagine preparing for a competition without yohimbine. And if and it happens very fast. If I want to get shredded and I use yohimbine and fasted cardio, then the fat on my stomach just falls off. It's amazing. And clenbuterol also to a lesser extent, clenbuterol plus fasting probably would, for a long period of fasting would probably do it. But clenbuterol gives me, I mean, I get crampy and shaky really easy off a low dosage of clenbuterol. And then yohimbine also low dosage. So I use both, from time to time, but I just keep the dosages really low.
Hmm.
And if I was going to prepare for a competition, then I would intentionally try to desensitize myself to the side effects of it. I would actually force myself to take, yohimbine twice a day, every day, so I could increase my dosage so it can be more and more effective. And then with Clen also, I would just push through, force myself on the lowest dosage and just keep stepping up and then just start um, treating the side effects as it comes up and adjusting. But I would still use both. I would use yohimbine personally before clenbuterol because yohimbine does something nothing else can do. Clenbuterol could be replaced by other things, but it is still the most popular because clenbuterol is a good price and it definitely works. And it gives some keeps some of the strength, even though you're dieting hard and muscle hardness and density. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Like to replace clenbuterol requires maybe a few other different supplements together, but then it can be replaced. So yeah, I would still use both from time to time.
Mm. I feel like this is certainly something a lot of the guests have said about titrating up over time because for sure we know people that would just go straight in on a really high dose of something like Clen, and then it's like, is it as effective as if we titrated it up over time in a diet? I feel like you're missing a trick a little bit there if you don't, would you agree?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess some people maybe they figured out their optimal dosage before, and they don't like changing their protocol. They just like, man, this is how much Glen I take, and that's their program, and probably it's better to titrate up because you lose some sensitivity over time, and you got to adjust the dosage with how your body's adjusting. But then it's just more complicated. So I think the people who are just picking up so many things in life to have to think about and worry about, and you got your meal prep and your training and your supplements, and it can all get so complicated. So I understand when people just pick like a simple cycle of simple compounds at a dosage that they know that works and not do things like titrating, for example.
Hmm. Would you always, you mentioned fasting, I would always use something like Ken fasted as well for like cardio or steps. Would you always recommend that if you were going to talk about Ken?
Well, I think you get the most bang for the supplement out of when you're fasting because like if you're not fasting, you're kind of just burning more of the carbs that you're eating too, like your metabolism is up and Clen really like helps you preserve muscle also when you're in a deficit. So if you're not really in like an extreme deficit, then you're not really getting the anti-catabolic benefits as much. It's just like you're still getting the same side effects of Clen, but you're getting less of the benefits the less fasted you are, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what pre-workouts do you use at the moment? Are you on the peptides?
Well, there's some peptides sometimes. Like today before the gym, I used some C-Max nasal spray.
Mm.
Um, for me, that's not an extreme. I don't notice extreme benefits from it because I take a lot stronger stuff. But some friends who they don't want to take anything unnatural, they still feel like C-Max and Solank are natural, so they'll take that as a nasal spray before the gym or some mental exertion.
Mhm.
But more on the powerful side, like on the stimulant side. Okay, stimulant pre-workout. If I had like one really hard workout per week and it just really mattered so much, and I got to train really hard in this session. DMAA is number one. I mean, with DMAA, it's a stimulant, and you know, it makes weight feel light. You know, it makes like normally you can do 12 reps, but you can do like 16 reps on it. It's pretty miraculous, but it just comes with a crash. You know, it's like you go up and you go down. So as long as the day schedule can be factored around this crash and you can take what I call a crash nap, then it's okay. But a lot of people, I think they take it and they're not really mindful about their mood and where it's coming from and their brain chemistry. And they end up in these psychological roller coasters of the stimulants, and the more powerful stimulants then also come with a more powerful crash. And they kind of end up with weird personality stuff and depression and all that. So as long as we can monitor all that, then DMA and manage that, then DMA is king. But for the general public, they probably shouldn't be taking DMA, you know? But then again, caffeine is also kind of similar for some people. Genetically, we all respond very differently to caffeine. It can't just across the board say caffeine is good or bad. I like a little bit of caffeine
Yeah.
because I like the adenosine blockade, like the wakefulness, not the adrenaline side of it, because the adrenaline from caffeine is kind of unstable for me. But if I take some caffeine and I combine it with good old ephedrine, is so much smoother than caffeine and more performance benefit and more fat loss from it. That's amazing, but that's hard to get in a lot of countries. You know, if you could have the ephedrine caffeine aspirin stack, that's still, I think that's still king, but it's just not widely available to a lot of people. So but the pre-workout from Enhanced, there's a couple different pre-workouts. So I'll experiment with various different ones of these, and they have a whole bunch of different stimulants in them. Like there's caffeine, and then there's like dicaffeine malate, and there's paraxanthin, which is like caffeine but without the anxiety and without the sleeplessness, you know, side effect. So there's like a whole stack of stimulants in there. I love that feeling, but I still only take half a scoop of Enhanced pre-workout products because a whole scoop would have me. It's really powerful because a lot of people need, like some people, they just need to feel that power, otherwise they say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So it's so powerful that I think one scoop is too powerful for a lot of people, including me. So half a scoop of that is good. And then at the gym, they have pre-workout drinks that have like low caffeine, like 80 milligrams. So sometimes I'll sip on that because then the caffeine, like to me, if I drink a whole bunch of caffeine at once, it's this weird, you know, spike and crash. But if I kind of sip on the caffeine during the first half of the workout, then I feel it's a lot more smooth. And synephrine, it's not, synephrine's an amazing fat burning stimulant, but it's not really stimulating as far as like it doesn't affect my heart, it doesn't make me shaky, anything like that. So some people might think, oh, the synephrine's not really working because you don't really feel it, but it definitely burns fat, like a similar type of fat burning as clenbuterol.
Yeah.
And let's see. I go to the gym. I'm like, you know, I'll take a alpha GPC or a CDP choline sometimes, but I'm also sensitive on the choline pathway. If I take too much, I get nauseous. And so, but a little boost of the choline I can feel gives me a little bit more of that almost like anxious energy,
Yeah.
which is good for the gym, like mental focus, mind muscle connection, you could say, right? What else? You think I'm missing any? I
No.
think like of my wall of supplements, I'm sure there's a lot more stimulants on there. I'm not even.
I feel like as well when you do experiment, maybe a good message to anyone listening is to, like you said, sometimes have like half a scoop or try something and not go in too hard. Now, have you been around people or experienced it yourself where, you know, you really do just take way too much and then it's trying to, because if anyone's listening again and they try something, what would you recommend if someone goes into that realm of like, holy fuck, like I don't know what to do to try and calm down?
Yeah, this has happened many times in my experiments, and especially with the girls. There's the girls behind me over there. With the girls, they're
Harem.
yeah, they take the stimulants, and it's very easy with their light body weight and sensitivity to take too much, and then they'll start throwing up and shaking. Uh, yeah, so that usually I can block it with propranolol. So if if their, adrenaline goes too high, adrenaline will block it, bring their heart rate down. If it's just their heart, like Sarah, for example, was taking a bunch of fat burners and stimulants and stuff, and her heart rate was going really fast, but like she wasn't shaking or any other side effects. So I gave her nebivolol, which just blocks the effect of stimulants on the heart, but not the rest of the body. And then her heart rate came down, and she was perfect, right? It'd probably be also good to check their blood pressure, because if their blood pressure comes up, then maybe we need to take one of those also to lower their blood pressure. As far as like the shakings, ah, um, when the blood sugar drops too, when you take too many stimulants and then the blood sugar it like comes up because your body's releasing blood sugar to use, and then it like crashes, like you run out of blood sugar, and then they get weak and dizzy, and so then I'll give them coconut water because coconut water has electrolytes in it. It's easy to drink. The body accepts it very well. It rehydrates you very quickly. And it has sugar in it, but also has fructose, which is good or bad, but it stabilizes blood sugar. So that's like the medical kit, the emergency kit for the stimulants is usually coconut water and propranolol and nebivolol.
It's like just sit down, calm down. Because I feel like it's a bit like recreational drugs. If you get the effects and you're like, if you start panicking, obviously it feels like all of everything seems to just go sky high, similar with stimulant use. And then you're like, you're in this hole of anxiety, what the fuck's going on? And it can almost make it worse. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, and when dopamine and uh, dopamine and let's see, it would be the glutamate pathway, the NMDA receptor. So when these get overly stimulated, and brain cells like explode, right? So when people do recreational drugs that give them a lot of high or manic episodes. So for that also we have memantine, lithium. These both block the NMDA and overstimulation of the brain to prevent it from damage. And then for the dopamine, yeah, you have to, and adrenaline, besides the beta blockers, then calming down and just don't overstimulate. Like don't do anything that would cause any natural release that would add to synthetic dopamine and also adrenaline. So yeah, calm down, a cool shower, cool the core body temperature down. Actually feels like I deal with this stuff kind of a lot, actually. There's like a lot of these experiments, and not even me just experimenting on them, but they experiment on themselves also. And then, we have to do a little bit of damage control from time to time.
I love it. What's the with your extreme experiments? I don't know if you can remember with like people that you've worked with in the bodybuilding space. What's the highest dose of clen that you've come across, if you can remember?
Yeah, I had some bodybuilders that I were working with in the past at a period of time when Clen was most popular. And I think Coach Trevor in my content, because Coach Trevor was a hardcore bodybuilder and he took all the most powerful compounds. And so when Coach Trevor said something was dangerous, oh, it got people's attention. So when he said that Clen is more dangerous than any steroids and more dangerous than, insulin and all this, then I think it actually caused a massive awareness of the risks of clenbuterol. Not that it can be still used healthfully, like clenbuterol plus nebivolol. That's a good combination to protect the heart, at least, right? And plus taurine and potassium and electrolytes and all that, not dehydrating. But I think he brought a lot of attention to the danger of clenbuterol. So now people usually use a lower dosage, or they worry more if the dosage is high and they experience a side effect. But back then, before those warnings, I remember a few of my bodybuilders that I'd experiment on. They were up to 120 micrograms, which is insane to me because I take 20 micrograms and I'm already shaking a bit. I know after a couple of weeks, then I can go to 40 and it could go to 60. But to me, it was like so crazy. It's like, guys, why don't you just take 1 week break? And also because of the pendulum theory of not like burning yourself out on fat loss for 6 weeks, have like a refeed day or a refeed week or something, swinging the pendulum back to get the metabolism back, then also take a break from cleanse during that time. But we could also resensitize to cleanse with ketotifen. So, ketotifen, an antihistamine taken before bed, will resensitize the clen receptors, and you can keep the dosage lower. So I understand going 40, 60 micrograms, 80 micrograms maybe, but the old days of going like 100, 120 micrograms, that just seems wild to me. But there's different genetics and different risk tolerances.
Yeah, yeah. My first experience of Clen in my last prep went up to 1, 2, and I was at the end of that prep, Tony. No joke, it took me like 8 to 10 months to recover. Obviously, getting stage lean as well, but it was him buying 20 and 1, 2 Clen every day. Wild. I was batshit crazy.
Wow. Yeah, your body has no rest. Your central nervous system stimulated 24 hours a day. How'd your muscles feel? I bet you felt like you probably lost all the fat from within the muscle, probably hard, huh?
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
also looked very stringy at the end.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, it's because the effect, of course, on the taxation physiologically from long-term use of that high, I feel like again that's something that's missed, and then after the prep, takes so long to recover as well.
Mm. Yeah, I think shorter, yeah, if you can have little breaks for your central nervous system instead of going for long episodes of the high dosage, it's probably a lot better. Yeah. Otherwise, it'd take a lot longer to recover. Yeah.
Yeah, rather than just like
How
while
did how'd you sleep? How'd you sleep? Like you must have taken sleeping pills or something, right?
yeah, so the melatonin gummies, you can get like
Mm.
10 milligrams. I took 10 of them a night, two antihistamines, magnesium, and I'd just sit there, Tony, and I'd sleep for like 2 hours. It was really bad.
Oh, rough. Yeah. I tried for one prep. I tried just like grinding myself into the ground like that. And it wasn't like I could do it for a short period of time, but then, yeah, my muscles, my body wasn't recovered. I couldn't fill out. I couldn't lift. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't tap into my strength. I was weak. Yeah, too much.
For sure, for sure. And yohimbine, what would you say would be a higher dose of that?
20 milligrams is a high dosage for your body weight too. That's super high. With my body weight, which I mean, you're kind of tall, so, but my body weight is supposedly, according to the studies, maybe should have been around 23 milligrams or something like this. But that's a high dosage, and I remember if I start at 23, forget it. I'll be so miserable. I'll be drenched in sweat. I'll have goosebumps all day. My blood pressure is all over the place. I was able to work up to 20 milligrams. I don't think I went much over 20. And there wasn't many days I ever went over 20, but there was definitely a week, at least a week or 2 weeks where I was at 20 every day. And that worked really well. I felt like I was sensitive enough. I didn't need any more. And I saw the fat falling off and I was ultra shredded. So like that was enough. That was amazing. I want to do that again. That's amazing. I remember the feeling of doing fasted cardio on your spine. Such a high. I haven't had that in a while because my cardio sucks so bad now. But back then I was doing cardio every day, and then I had the yohimbine, and I'm like, whoa, that feeling was amazing. And then fat's like falling off. But okay, this is getting me excited. I'm filming a documentary the end of the month, and I have some scenes I got to be shredded for. So I'm definitely going to throw in some fasted cardio and yohimbine and think about you. But I'm probably going to do alpha yohimbine at 3 milligrams. Well, which is much more powerful than regular yohimbine, anyways. But that 3 milligrams is going to rock my world.
Tell me about that documentary before we finish, or is it a secret?
I mean, I can't say like where it's going to play and like too much about the storyline and all that, but mainly it follows me around and is like behind the scenes of the Tony Huge's life and the influence that I had on opening the door to bodybuilding chemistry and human optimization. Because back when I was doing that content of injecting myself with peptides on camera, the mainstream says it's basically murder. I'm going to kill people. Peptides are dangerous. They're not FDA approved. And they censored me for it. But I opened this door, and then a lot of other people started experimenting with it on camera too. So it kind of led. It was kind of the first domino towards like the TRT movement and it becoming more accepted that men use testosterone replacement therapy and that all of us use peptides and things like that. So there's a little bit of the transformation element, and then it's kind of like just me being crazy, thinking outside the box, but then later the mainstream kind of catching up to it. So it also has a lot about the harem and the girlfriends, also that the fact that that's crazy, but the fact that maybe I'm onto something, maybe there's other types of relationships that work, and and analyzing the psychology about that. I'll say there's one scene in one of the episodes. There's multiple episodes. There's one scene where I'm having a harem meeting with all the girls there, and there's like 7 girlfriends, and I'm just like laying down the law, and the whole movie crew is watching like, oh my God, what is this? This is real? Like, is this real life? Is this really happening? Because Americans have never seen anything like this, I mean, UK also, like, it's something that maybe in like an Asian culture or a Muslim culture they might see more of this kind of extreme masculinity. But and then also it's interesting character development because, and what I talk about in the documentary is that I had a very, even though I physically looked very masculine, the way I interacted with women was not masculine. And I had to learn that, and I'm still learning it. And it's hard because I was programmed to be a less masculine man by my mom and by society in America. So it's a lot of character development about myself and before and after and who I am now and what I'm trying to do. And then the effect that this has on various industries like the biohacking and bodybuilding industry and the manosphere.
Love it, love it. I will keep an eye out. This episode goes live at Christmas, so maybe that's closer to when you will release. But I'll keep an eye out, or maybe I'll message you saying, "Where is it?" I want.
Okay.
I love it. Well, thank you again, Tony. This episode is going to be like the trend tales, so lots of different guests talking about stimulant use. So thank you as always for coming on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Good to talk to you always.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we haven't got the welcome, Romana, Dan, and Rogue, because this is our mega Stim Stories episode. And what an episode it has been so far. And I was just saying to you guys how it's been both educational and entertaining, shall we say? As you can imagine with Stim use, right? Like I feel there's often this like people forget that even caffeine is a stimulant because in the bodybuilding space, a lot of people just drink coffee and it's a normal thing. Then we've got like the pre-workouts, then we've got the clen, your himbine, and then we continue on the spectrum as it were. So we've sort of covered a lot of different things. But I feel like a bit like when Dan first came on the pod, he was like, so your gateway drug with PEDs, you can start one and say, I think Dan, you said I'd never use insulin. And then you were like, oh, okay, I'll try insulin. And then it's like, what's next? What's next?
I'll use it every day. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. I feel like for sure, guys, with stims, it's, when you are in a prep and when you're doing all of this, what's required in a prep, particularly for your categories, getting diced, as it were, the stims just become quite a normal thing, right? Like it's a thing. And I feel like then maybe we don't really give onus to the things like coffee and pre-workout and stuff because it's just part of your normal thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big pre-workout user anyway, mainly because I suppose I could use it now I've started training earlier. In prep, if I'm really fucked, I'll use it. But as a rule, I don't tend to because it messes, even if I have it sort of around midday, it will mess with my sleep. But yeah, when I do use it, it can, oh God, I remember post Olympia, Redcon 1, what they called the Russian bottles of pre workout.
Oh, I have no idea.
RTDs, yeah. I had one of them, and I swear, whatever they put in Redcon pre workout in the States is very different to the stuff we get over here.
Oh,
That, and I hadn't used it for a little while, but all my other stims from prep had come out at that point, and I was literally bouncing off my nut. We went and trained before we got the flight home. And I mean, I don't sleep on flights anyway, but I was still wired, even however many hours later, sat on the flight home.
mm.
Yeah. So that's why I don't use pre workout very often. But caffeine, definitely. Not so much. I've been pretty good the last sort of few weeks of off season. I've had the occasional coffee or the occasional monster, but I am a bit of a caffeine freak.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I didn't even drink coffee before coaching with Tom, my second coach. I was like, the only memory I do have, which I don't even know if I've said this on the pod, but I used to dunk a biscuit in my granddad's coffee, and I used to be like milky coffee. I'd be like, oh, that's really nice, but I wouldn't want to drink it. And then because I became assisted and he started, bringing in stims, etc., he was like, well, we could utilize caffeine and use coffee. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like coffee. Now I'm like, oh, I love coffee.
I was pretty similar to you actually. I didn't have coffee until 2020, the morning of when I won my pro cards. Rob LRF was like, right, I need you to have an espresso, which ended up being just very, very strong, best Western instant coffee. No wonder it tasted like arse, but it did kind of get me into the whole coffee thing. But my sort of go-to more than pre-workout is fat burners. Not necessarily for the fat burning properties within prep, because I don't necessarily think the standard, like I'm talking Grenade, I'm talking HR Fever, and the various other sort of ones like that you can buy in Holland and Barrett, that sort of fat burner. It's literally for the caffeine. That's what gets me out of bed. Pop a couple of them, doze for 20 minutes, and then I'm ready to go, which is probably why I'm finding mornings quite so horrific at the moment, because I'm literally just cold. I ran out the Grenade, I don't know, month, 5 weeks ago, because I've been tapering down. And yeah, just decided to not buy it anymore.
Mm.
That's probably why I've been getting a lot of headaches.
Yeah, the caffeine headache. You also you raise a relevant point there with like essentially titration, so you can titrate up, down, prep, off season, whatever. I remember a pod ages ago, years ago, where I had a guest on and he was saying about, if you're spanking loads of coffee in off season, where you're going to go in a prep. And there's thought processes behind that for sure, but it depends if you're then going to use obviously stimulants, pre-workout, etc. on top. But I do feel like it's a good, if you're in a good spot in off season, you're not as, I personally feel if I've been in a longer off season, I'm not as inclined to sort of feel like I need as much caffeine, if you know what I mean.
I find things like coffee, the milk or the oat milk in it blunts my appetite. So I'll purposefully not have a coffee because I know it's going to affect the eating for the rest of the day. I've started having like half a monster in the morning, but I normally don't drink the whole thing again because, well, first off, I eat meal one and go and train, and I don't take the monster with me, and it's flat and warm by the time I get back. And the bubble's just appetite, but half a can's just enough to kind of wake me up so I can function.
No one's actually mentioned appetite with on this pod so far with caffeine. That's
I was about to
interesting.
say it's likely the oat milk for sure
Mm.
can have an effect on appetite, especially as let's call it optimally. You don't actually, it doesn't sit that well, but you like it, and it doesn't cause you to shit yourself because it's not milk, but it still might not actually be all that good for your digestive tract. But thinking about caffeine, as you got two ends of it, you've got prep needs for caffeine, you've got off-season needs for caffeine. When we get to two extremes of either scale, you can see caffeine obviously want to increase along with other stimulants. Generally, though, in a prep setting, you've got other stimulants layering into that. You've got things like TREN, historically, ephedrine, in my case, and it doesn't help me, and I'll get onto this, kratom, these kind of things. But in the off season, the extremes, when you are pounding food, likely as well, if you're a super heavyweight bodybuilder, and I was just over 290 this morning, so I'm very heavy, and you do get lethargy that sinks into that, and then what comes into that is insulin usage, layered over by I'm using 12 IUs of growth hormone daily, which makes you feel very lethargic, and it makes you want to reach for borrowed energy, which is caffeine. So what is the mindset is there in the moment, you can go and grab it because you're on that other extreme of fighting the lethargy from the phase you're in. But then it's remembering the circle of biofeedback that comes along with that is increased caffeine intake. Generally, when you are hammering a lot of food, will have a blunting appetite effect, and it will have an impact on the GI. So you're making your own job harder there. And then with that, the heavier you are as well, you can have an impact on sleep, and put caffeine layering over that again. You're then waking up groggy because you're not getting good night's sleep. And then you're reaching for more caffeine. And there gets to a point of dependence where, well, where do you go from there? You go more, which, and then feedback loop further, appetite issues. You see, so you're not actually helping yourself by reaching for it, solve the root cause. And the other side of it goes into prep as well, is read your biofeedback. When you are starting to get hindered sleep, I'm big on, if it gets to it, your sleep is caused by hunger and maybe drops in blood sugar, which you kind of adjust your diet. I think we all get to the point in prep where we actually like to buy some macros or bed to help sleep and aid sleep. Like, we all go there, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I do. I definitely do, Dan.
But you do of oats. It sustains your energy very well.
But I can't eat them too. So you ideally would like to eat and fall into bed.
I can do that.
Yeah. Even in prep, I can't eat and go straight to bed.
Yeah, no, very true, very true. You do have a gap. But if I had a number of meals throughout the day, like we ran before Empro, where you did have pro-fat meals in the middle of the day, would you rather that pro-fat meal as your last meal?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not arguing that.
That's what
I'm not arguing that.
So from the carbohydrates, you're getting the serotonin.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is when you're in prep, assess the biofeedback, and before you make any moves, like personally, I like to standardize caffeine according to your schedule. So our schedule in prep and off season is most of our activity is done from 5:30 a.m. onwards. In terms of if we're doing cardio, if we're training after one meal, so we can afford to have our allotted caffeine at that time in the morning. And I like to just keep that glued and stuck on without moving it, because you start moving it, you're now borrowing from the bank of energy, in which you eventually need to pay back. So in terms of now, what you're looking for is the layering over tools. If you've got that one standardized caffeine of that time of day, obviously make sure it's not too late in the day because it will impact sleep anyway. But then you've got clenbuterol, your Humbean, that kind of thing as well. And if you're tapering up Clen, let's say every 2 weeks by 20 to 40 mcg, I'd say if you're doing it, 20 mcg is a good jump. 40 for a lot of people can hit a little bit hard. You're going for more effect for fat loss. You're also taking from biofeedback as you do that, reducing sleep and reducing productivity for the next day, which is counterintuitive to the overall goal, right, of getting fat free.
Yeah.
So make that assessment, and when you get to that titration level where you go, right, this is really taking from me now, I would go a week of pulling the clenbuterol out altogether. And a lot of people are scared of just pulling clenbuterol. I don't understand why, because we titrate it up to get the maximum effect from the least dose as we go. But when you pull it back, you'll often see massive improvement in sleep, and you'll see your weight doesn't actually shift up. If anything, you might actually drop weight. So don't be afraid to do that. You don't have to titrate down. If you work up to 80, go 60, 40, 20. If you're up at 80, pull it for a week or two. See how you do. Don't be like, oh, this drug, I need this for the goal. No, you need biofeedback for your goal.
Sleep is always going to trump
Yeah, I love that you've actually touched on it like that because just sprung to my mind. There's like emotional attachments. I've had multiple clients that have come to me with previous coaches, particularly around what I found thyroid medication being like,
Yeah.
we have to use thyroid medication, we have to use, and I'm like,
If your thyroid is not down-regulated, why put it in?
yeah, like
Blood
let's
work,
actually.
is thyroid struggling? Then it's a well, yeah,
But that's been quite a common one for me when
yeah.
previous coaches have utilized thyroid meds, and then the Clen, your Himbine. Yeah, but if I don't take it, everything's going to go wrong. And then also after the season. So when we start to come out of the season and go into the reverse out, and I've personally I've had it myself where Matt had to hide it from me in the end, the Clen, because I was just like in this, I was fucking wild. My headspace was wild. I was like, I don't want to go into off season. I'm scared. Ah. And I
Yeah.
started trying to sort of do my own thing and what have you. It's the leanest I've ever been. I wasn't quite right up here, admittedly. So,
Well,
so
you do, don't you? You
Do
lose
you
your rationality.
do you get to a point in prep where clenbuterol gets to a level where you actually get anxiety from it, logical thoughts, this kind of thing?
The first prep I used it was the only prep I've used it for, and it was 120 for ages. Like me and Mona have touched on it before, but it was 20 Yohimbine, 120 Clen every day for months. And I wasn't right, Dan. Like it took me probably 8 to 10 months to come back to normal. Who am I? Like after the prep, I'm talking 8 to 10 months, right? Like it was maybe not anxiety, but
On
it was
edge.
like, yeah, it was like I was a ghost.
I find Yohimbine does that to me more than Clen. We've not used Yohimbine since Olympia prep.
I see it as pointless.
We put it
What it
in,
can do.
put it in for about 2 weeks, and I was just sat trying to type, and my hands are like, I know people get Clen shakes. I don't tend to get Clen shakes, but it was literally couldn't even type a word out from it, and anxiety just went through the fucking roof. Just feeling anxious for no reason whatsoever, and it was at a point where I'd been used to feeling anxious, but I'd now left the ambulance service, so my baseline anxiety had dropped down quite considerably. Prep does, prepping for the Olympia does trigger anxiety. It's the biggest fucking stage ever. You don't know what to expect. You've been
Yeah.
on prep for months. What's it going to be like going to going to Florida and all that sort of stuff? And so yeah, it was literally like it just made everything feel worse for the 2 weeks that we had it in, and then we've not used it again since. I'd used it a couple of times before, but I wonder if it was genuine because I didn't feel like that when I used it. I know AD Shreddable that has you Himbine in it, doesn't it?
No, not officially, but the feel is very similar.
Yeah,
Joe said to me in person, because I wanted to know what was in it. He wouldn't say because it is a proprietary blend, but the feel is very similar. So it could be, it might not be, I don't know. But that stuff is quite a similar feel in terms of those cold sweats.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I remember again being in prep 2020 and taking it before I went to work. And within an hour of being at work, my work shirt is completely drenched. Everything's completely drenched, but forest green, similar to the color top you're wearing there, but cotton. So as soon as you started sweating, it went black. And I'm just sat there at work in cold sweats, trying to cover up with my fleece. It just felt disgusting. I had to go home in my rest break and change. Luckily, I had to live close enough that I could do that. But it's just,
I just don't. With all these inputs that we have tools for fat loss, you have to nicotine being one of them. You have to consider what they're taking from you in order to actually do the actions to drop the fat in the first place, retain training performance. If you are losing sleep, likelihood is your performance in the gym is going down. Therefore, you're not given the stimulus to actually maintain the muscle. You start dropping muscle in those red line zones. And now you're working with a smaller engine, which burns less fuel at a standing rate. So you think of the feedback loops here. And I'm not against clenbuterol usage. Use it with clients, of course, if they can tolerate it. Mentally, if a client can't tolerate it, it's not worth the squeeze. You'll get up to a dosage, and for me, over the years, it's got lower and lower. I have not had a client go over 80 mcg this year. It's
Nice.
usually about 60 or 40, because at a point, if they are dropping sleep, it's undoing what we're trying to do in the first place. People underestimate the importance of sleep and our daily actions and the body to facilitate the process of lipolysis.
It's like when they prep this year, whenever we're putting in high days, the clen came out.
This is something I'll do is generally, if I work out a circuit loop with a client in which they're likely going to have regular high days, so it might be every 5 days, every 7 days, you work out a circuit loop and what it takes their body to ring around the track one time and make progress towards a goal, lift it up a little bit, go again, another loop. And what's combined in that is a food intake, amount of output, and probably your lipolytic usage. Mm-hmm. So excluding thyroid usage, it might go something like Monday to Thursday, we're on Monday to Thursday, we're in our fat loss kind of stages where you might have your peak low day calories, higher cardio, clenbuterol in. Then Friday, the action might be we drop cardio out, we drop clen out, clen having a 48-hour half-life there. Then Saturday, be no cardio, no clen again. But the calories would be the same on the Friday. You don't need elevated calories at that point. You're first seeing the impact of the dropped expenditure, etc. Saturday, probably be the same. Sunday, now the body might be ready for a high day. You're coming out of that heightened state before feeding up, peristalsis, warm the GI up, and just lowering stress levels. Around this, and something I do tend to find as well, with all the elevations in caffeine intake, lipolytics, food being low, high cardio, everything else, is that creates an amount of pace in which the car can travel. So you'll be going, say, 100 miles an hour all the way to Thursday, right? Now you back off the output, you back off the clen, you back off the caffeine, because there's a period of the day you no longer need it now. Calories still the same, but does that car just stop like that? No, it takes an amount of time via momentum for it to drag itself through. So you might get another 3 days there without actually even elevating calories, just dropping output, dropping lipolytics, of the continued momentum going forward. You'll see the body might still drop day after day. And often cases, the sign for that is that it stops dropping in the first place. Mm-hmm. And it takes removing the lipolytics, removing the cardio, all the stresses from the body, getting better sleep, then saying, fuck me, I dropped 3 pounds overnight, out of nowhere, another 2 pounds. Mm-hmm. It's the momentum of the car. It doesn't just stop, it keeps going to a point. By this point, you've put the body into a stress-free environment. It's happier now, it's sleeping. Now you can feed it.
I love how you've broken that down, because I feel like, I mean, you're obviously very close with your clients, as I am. Sometimes trying to actually break that down and describe and educate, and what you've just spoken about there, it's a bit like a peak week, right? When you don't necessarily have to put a load of food in, you actually start to pull expenditure, you start to bring stress down from things like cleanse, stimulants, etc. But automatically it's like, where's all my food? Where's all my food? And it's like, no, there's other things. And the bigger picture is we've got the expenditure, we've got the stim use, obviously anabolics as well. There's various things we can start to, like you say, pull back on, and then get you ready to be able to be receptive to the food. And I love how you've broken that down. That's why I'm sitting there like, yeah.
Yeah. Let the body get into a calm, chill, relaxed state. And like, if we're talking in terms of peak week, I want to have done this process of actually pushing for fat loss externally via lipolytics, via cardio, everything else, everything that the body says fuck off to, basically. I want that stopped about 4 or 3 weeks out. And now let the body freshen up. You'll have your normal high days come in. And now from here onwards, you're learning about how to peak this body, because you have moved cardio, that's a tool. and a variable. You've removed lipolytics, that's a tool and a variable. Remove the variables and have single variables which maintain the body's weight as you go. And from here, now you can manipulate low day, high day, low day, high day, or however you're going to do your peak week in order to land that best look. And you have like 3 or 4 weeks to learn that.
It's such a cool exploration. I do think that there is, of course, a reason to do this podcast and what we talk about anyway is trying to educate people. You know, I feel like, and I don't know if it's mainly social media, but there's this like superficial almost pressure and influences and all of this stuff that comes out where it's like, you know, people are like more is better, more is better, more. Yeah, but if I'm not on thyroid meds, if I'm not on Clen, if I'm not on Yohimbine, if I'm not using a pre-workout, if I'm not, and it's those jaded lines, as it were, because there's information coming from everywhere, but then it's the education that is missed. I'm sure you'd agree.
I think there's also another layer to it, which is people looking for that quick fix.
Yes, nice.
There isn't one. You can't sit there and chew Clen like it's Tic Tacs and think that the body fat's just going to fall off you. You have to do the work. You have to be in the calorie deficit. You have to do the cardio. You have to do the steps. You have to do the training. You've got to do the sleeping if you can. Clen's not a magic wand. It's not going to suddenly bring peeled glutes to the stage.
And sometimes all these things that we're using for the goal of lipolysis are the things that are hindering you from lipolysis in those further stages. And people can't believe it until I've countless amount of clients that have had previous coaching and thought this is the way, but it's like, yeah, but you've never landed it until now.
Yes.
Understand like what's in front of your eyes. It's so hard to get people out of I must use this, I must use TREN in the final weeks or wherever it is, when it's likely the very reason as why you haven't landed it in the first place, because you've taken away your body's ability to actually stop and think about what it's going to do. It won't do it when it has this clusterfuck of storm around it.
Yeah. And then it's like even personal life coming into the circumstance as well. It's like the stresses from that side of things. And there's so many things. I remember, Marnie, you said it once on a pod, stuck out in my mind. You were like, remember, steroids are a stressor on the body. And it's like, again, you attribute the physique outcome. So it's like, oh, I inject or, you know, take a pill or whatever. And it's like, I get this physique outcome. All of the things we're doing are stresses on the body. And we mentioned peak week, right? It's about, you know, manipulating things and ideally pulling back to then freshen up. Like you say, it could be 3-4 weeks out if someone is, you know, on track and ready. And it's that, you know, it's always that, like you say, Manu, it's that mixture of like a quick fix and almost the addictive personality, I believe, in certain people, and that includes myself at times. You know, it's like
Imagine trying to land a plane on choppy waters. Calm the waters first. Like even down to AAS usage. That towards the end, usually for me, with my clients, I bring it right down. TREN usually doesn't exist in its final weeks. You don't want to create an environment where you're fighting with your partner because you're not sleeping. You're on all these different drugs. And you're literally creating a scenario where cortisol is so high, you can't land the body anyway, no matter what diuretic or what drug you try and use in the background.
And when we talk about stress and cortisol, you know, often we talk of stress, we're thinking of psychological stress, but cortisol also elevates from physiological stress. So you might not have any external stressors, like work might be all right, partner might be okay, family might be okay, bills are all being paid, don't know. But you're still putting, like I said, anabolics in your body. They will be a stressor. You're still doing all the cardio. That is a stressor, same as the calorie deficit. And, you know, you're potentially tanking your HDL. That's a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's then evidence in your elevated cortisol, elevated ALT, AST, all of those sorts of stress inflammatory markers are all going to add into that kind of inflammation cascade that is the final weeks of prep. And then on top of that, you've got I can't say it. Lipolysis. I was going to say lipolytics. There we go. Got it out that time. You add that on top, it's just another physiological stressor. And then if you're predisposition to anxiety from them as well, then on top of the physiological, you've got the additional psychological anxiety stressor.
I mean, you put it all together, all the tools we're using, if they're at peak when you're trying to land a body, like not only is the stress on the body internal, but external, because if you're not sleeping and in those final weeks, you've got this to-do list and the pressures of a show coming up, you're going to be more snappy. You're probably going to fight with your partner in those moments, if any moment at all. And then put into all the same things in terms of you're not sleeping, the amount of upregulation you have, the amount of lack of energy you have at the same time. You put in there, say AAS is at peak as well, which are immunosuppressant in themselves. You're creating an environment there for getting ill in those final weeks on top.
Yeah.
It's like none of it makes sense.
I don't know. I think Clen is an excellent antibacterial. Like, I know you had your stomach upset, but you had that, what we think was COVID, out in Empro a couple of days before the show, and it didn't hit me until the Tuesday before we came home. So nearly 5 days later, I got ill. And yeah, there's an incubation period, but we go everywhere together. The likelihood we was exposed at the same time. So therefore, I think Clen basically saved me from being ill on show day.
I actually think the high Clen use, although I would never ever want to go back on 120, I feel like it cured my asthma, you know?
Well, yeah, because it's a
Probably.
beta 2 agonist.
I honestly, like, when I think back to that prep, it's quite hard to even quantify in my own mind what I was like in that time. As I say, I was like a shadow, a ghost. But it was just like it's such a wild space, and for people listening that are looking at using, things like fat burners, etc. Yes, of course, in our mind, as you say, oh, here's a magic pill. You're not injecting it; it's just an oral. Oh, I'll take that with my normal supplement.
Yeah.
It's very low commitment, as it were, right? So you can just pop this pill, and you see it thrown around the space. Okay, so you burn 300 calories from this. Okay, I'll take these, and you don't always notice, like with anabolics, like with a lot of the things we can use, that you do start to fade, you do start to become someone else, but you don't realize because of course you're running a high deficit at the same time as well. And we've touched on it before, all three of us on the pod, where it's like, have you got people around you that are close enough to touch base with, and those people that and this is tricky, you don't like people going, "Are you okay? Let's sit down and have a chat." Because but if you've got someone that you've got that right relationship, like you guys can go, okay, and I can do it with Matt. That's quite hard because you don't really know it's happening, do you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the long and short of it is these things they can have a place.
Mm-hmm.
The devil is in the dosage, individual to the person, and they're all tools. Now, would you use a tool for the benefit of the goal, but when the tool starts becoming counter towards the goal, it now makes no sense. So let's literally just create a drug here. And I tell you, this drug, I'm presenting it to you like a salesman. This drug will give you 8 hours of sleep 2 weeks out from show. Yeah, this drug will have your energy sustainable and maintainable. This drug will, as a byproduct of the sleep, make you completely tolerant of those fucking idiots in the gym that will ask you how many weeks out are you, mate. All the rest of it, it will put your body into a place of zen. Could you imagine? Like we would be like doing 5 mil of that a day.
I think it's called LSD.
Maybe. But all right, so that drug,
ketamine, actually.
That drug sounds like the absolute goat for progression in prep or any phase whatsoever. So why would we use a drug that starts taking from all those things it could potentially give us? Makes zero sense.
And you mentioned dosage just then. Clenbuterol as a rule, it's made in someone's bathtub. It's still made in an underground lab. And you had an issue last prep where you said something didn't feel quite right. You were feeling really anxious, didn't know why. Got the Clen batch tested. What, you thought you were on?
Well, no. So there was a couple of things. I had one diet where I used Clen. I don't know the dosage of it, but it was laced, and I had severe anxiety to the point where like I was not rational with my thoughts. Like we were in the cinema watching.
We had to leave.
Yeah, we were in the cinema watching what was the film called?
Something Southpaw.
One with Zac Efron, Iron Claw.
Iron Claw, that's it.
Where
I knew it was cool.
all his brothers were on gear and they were committing suicide. I had to leave. Like, and I'm not this kind of person. Like, I could sit for
It's normally me.
Just not logical. So that at that point, whatever I was taking was not conducive to what I was trying to achieve. But then I had some claim for a diet a year ago that had it batch tested in the end. But I went away to Romania. I had a client doing a pro qualifier. I dropped 12 pounds that week whilst away. I was 12 or 13 or something like that. And it was only like 2 weeks later where I had it batch tested, and he said to me, a friend who batch tested it for me, said, mate, one tab is not 40 mcg. One tab is 9, I think it came out 91.25, where I thought I was taking 80 mcg of this. I was taking just over 180 mcg. But this is the weird thing. This is why I said the previous claim must have been laced with something else, because I didn't have anxiety with it, but fuck me, my heart rate was through the roof. So,
Get your drugs tested, guys.
You had, not a stimulant, but you had something.
It was something in that one previous.
Well, you also had something that was meant to be something else that turned out to be Anadrol, which you definitely can't have. Can't remember what it was meant to be.
Oh, it was meant to be Halo. It wasn't.
Oh, Dan's favourite.
Once again, didn't say that Halo was meant to go in, just that whatever you were taking.
Just a little bit.
We have an agreement.
I realised it wasn't, because I felt like shit and on 8 pounds of water that week.
Didn't you also get hiccups?
No,
not for that one.
No.
You'll have to listen to previous pods about Halo if you're intrigued now. It's like, oh, what do you mean Halo? What are they talking about?
I can't use Halo.
Dan is not.
That's prep mindset, not learning from previous mistake of using it and not getting on with it, and going, I want that for 3%. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
I won't do it again because I realised it really did hinder the goal.
Wait, promise on the podcast you're not gonna.
Promise.
He just looked at me out of the corner of his eye there.
I promise, because I can't unless I'm getting it batch tested, I can't trust it anyway. I don't care about an iron curtain to an extent.
Thanks.
But I'm not feeling that way. I'm not putting 8 pounds of water on.
Never mind the strain, just doesn't want to put on 8 pounds of water.
You guys are literally the best.
I can't use many orals or any oral at all anyway. Not on my GI, it just doesn't like it. It taxes out. It's not worth it.
Can I just remind you, the one and only time we've actually had a row was when you were on Halo.
Yeah. It's that, and remember, you're getting married, guys. We don't want marriage counselling, do we?
I mean, that would just be one to add to my list.
Just a counsellor. So what is Halo?
I love it. Now, you guys are there. I wanted to save you the juicy pair till the last guests on this podcast. Now I'm going to ask you a question because it's being released at Christmas. What is your top 3 favourite Christmas foods? I'm just going to put it out there to finish this episode, guys.
Roast dinners trigger me. I don't like them.
I'm a bit like that.
Break. Well, you too. Shame
I'm a bit like that.
Don't classify all roast dinners as a roast dinner. Break it down. What do you like within a roast dinner if you can have the individual ingredients?
Chicken.
Yorkshire puddings and pigs in blankets.
Perfect. Very good combo. Very good
Like material there.
Yeah.
So I'm not American. I wish I was. I'd love to try sweet potato pie. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I'd love to try it because all my friends right now in America, it's Thanksgiving. I'm seeing all this stuff being sent through. They look like they do it better.
They normally do.
I'd go pigs and blankets, Yorkshire puds,
roast potatoes if they're cooked in goose fat.
Like crispy and soft in the middle.
But the best thing is the next day. The stuffing, turkey, and cranberry sandwiches with pigs and blankets on top.
With sourdough and butter.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is why Emily Wilkinson nagged me so much about eating greens. But basically, the reason I don't eat greens is because my grandma's cooking when I was a kid and the roast dinners on Sunday, and having to sit there until you finished all of your greens. And I say green, they weren't green, they were grey because they've been boiled to the point of any nutrient value had been thrown down the sink rather than in the vegetable.
That is traumatic.
It is.
I'm a big fan of like honey roasted carrots,
Oh.
parsnips, and all of this. What's the other thing?
Do you like bubble and squeak?
No,
Yeah, I can do that.
no.
Yeah, if
I'll
done
have the
right.
mashed potato fried. Yes,
What about
please.
sauces? Cranberry?
No, no,
Yes.
no. Apple sauce, if it's nowhere near any meat, with some cinnamon and raisins as a dessert. That is the only acceptable way to eat apple sauce. None of this putting it on pork bollocks. What is that? What is savory? Stay savory. Sweet, stay sweet. Why are you mixing the two? They're
Oh,
different
yeah.
taste palettes.
I just remember you voice noted me once saying, "Why do they put cranberry sauce in brie and bacon baguettes?" Didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that.
Why ruin a perfectly decent brie and bacon baguette by putting fucking cranberry sauce in it?
Look at Dan's face.
Like gravy can just fuck off.
Yeah,
when
I
it's
don't like gravy.
thin. Ugh.
Oh, I love gravy. But it has to be thick. If it's thin,
No,
Um,
it's like diarrhea.
I disagree with the notion that the bird should be turkey. It's dry as fuck.
Yeah,
Chicken is better.
duck.
Yeah, the chicken, a duck, and like a beef or a lamb.
Yeah, you got to have some sort of red meat. And what about, okay, to finish off even more so, top 3 puddings. Come on.
Sticky toffee, apple crumble, nothing to do with Christmas. Cheesecake.
Yeah, I go sticky toffee,
Sticky toffee.
toothy. I like a Christmas dessert, warm. I love
As
it.
in a Christmas pudding.
Yeah,
Right.
Very
Not just a random Christmas dessert, the Christmas pudding.
yeah. And mince pies.
Do you like mince pies, Mana?
You do.
I'm not. I'll eat one if I'm hungry and they're there, but I'm not a big.
I eat the case, but I don't like the meat.
See, I'd eat the mince, not the case.
What about what is it with the mincemeat and the apple? Stewed apple. Apple.
Oh, apple
Apple
strudel.
strudel. Yeah,
Apple
well,
strudel. Yeah,
stewed apple.
stewed apple.
Because apple strudel has a bit of pastry in it. That's all right. That's acceptable.
Yeah, if you do it with sweet cinnamon, some honey. Yeah, good.
Lots of sugar.
Lots of-
Well, guys, if you've made it to this part and now you are hungry, I mean, it's being released around Christmas, so take your selection. What's going to be available? Who knows?
Although I can see the next diet change in my plan being apple sauce.
With the jam.
They're going Chad Nichols load.
Yeah. I think if I get up to 300 grams of jam, that might be a bit excessive. We might need to swap it for something else.
Apple pie filling.
Yeah.
And you mean you don't?
Oh, Rogue, happy Christmas.
She's very overstimulated.
Perfect for the Stim stories.
Like floppy.
Oh, we love you, Rogue. Well, thank you, guys.
Thanking you. And although this is going out later, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow for the wedding dresses and Mum and Brittany and whoever else is going to be there. Who knows?
Dan's mum.
Dan's mum.
Oh, you get to meet Dan's mum and my mum in the same time.
You'll love my mum.
Oh my God, me and your mum are going to be best friends.
My mum and Dan's mum are like yin and yang.
Yeah, my mum's a legend.
Although it is quite funny watching his mum trying to outtalk my mum and my mum backing down and then sulking.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I remember these voice notes. I'm just going to be an observer. I'll be like, hi, Mum. Hi, Mum. I'm
Yeah.
just going to sit and make reels.
Yeah.
Just to finish the podcast as well, the vaping in the background was pure irony of the fact we're doing a Stim podcast.
Yeah,
So
they don't normally vape.
nicotine,
Yeah.
yeah.
They don't normally vape, guys. It's just for the podcast.
They're actually nicotine free.
Well,
On that note.
I love it.
Cheers.
Oh, thank you for listening, guys, and thank you to you two for finishing this episode. And happy fucking Christmas!
Humbug. Bye.
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 Hey!